From the bumpy Sebring International Raceway, it's time to add some thrills into the fun. IMSA Esports starts a Super Sunday with the LMP3 Challenge for the very first time. Welcome along to the iRacing Esports Network. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined along by Reese Gardiner and Joey Atterbury once again. It was just a couple of weeks ago that we kicked the season off at Road Atlanta, but Reese, now we have a support series as 12 sim racers join IMSA invitees to mix things up in the Ligier LMP3 machine.
Oh, it's going to be very fun, Arjuna, especially at a track like Sebring where the bumps are brutal and the speeds are high. I'm really looking forward to today's action. It's going to be a good taste for the second round of the series that's happening next round too.
Long Beach will be very, very intriguing, but Joey, Sebring, a former World War II airfield, and obviously such a legendary track, is an interesting challenge as we watch our drivers navigate through qualifying. Here's Suelio Almeida, sim racer turned professional racer in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. Big wiggle as he sweeps through Big Bend onto the run into the backstretch.
And you had mentioned just this previous airfield out here, this fantastic facility that is Sebring International Raceway. One cool part about watching these LMP3 cars is that you really do get to see the bumps throughout this racetrack. It is not a perfectly smooth racetrack, and of course, whenever we talk about Sebring, Arjuna, it is respect the bumps.
I had the privilege of driving my rental car around this track with Brian Till coaching me, and boy do you feel those bumps as well, I will tell you that. Dario Frattini, one of our sim racers who qualified in through the Grid Finder Community Series. A big thank you to our partners at Grid Finder for their continued support of IMSA Esports, and you can follow along with all the different things that they do, continued time attacks and prize pools, including tickets to various IMSA events that potentially you can join the fun. Second on the board right now is Jaden Conwright, who won his first race in the Michelin Pilot Challenge at VIR just a couple of months ago, but this is a shiny paint for the Delatrouse automotive machine of Christophe Herbigno, currently fifth on the board as he stretches his legs, Reese, towards the final corner.
Indeed, interesting fact about Sunset Bend, the final turn, the exit of it is the only piece of this circuit that dates all the way back to its original layout in the early 1950s. It's crazy how many iterations this track has been through, but its character has remained the same all throughout, and you really get a taste for how bumpy it is through Sunset Bend and down the start-finish stretch here. Turn one's going to be another massive opportunity around this place. Look at the speed even these LMP3 machines carry into it.
Jaden Conwright has gone to the top. These drivers do get 4 laps, and effectively, as we see the rear end step out on the 74, slams hard into the wall, does Jordan Wisely, 5-time winner of MTV's The Challenge. But because they start effectively on a full fuel tank, Joey, they are all looking to run as many laps as possible as we listen in to the V8 rumble down to turn 7.
You had mentioned that fixed setup and having everybody those full fuel tanks, and just to kind of reiterate that strategy in qualifying here. Yeah, you can't take the fuel out of the car, right? So what these drivers are going to go out there and do is turn as many laps as possible, and then hopefully that burns enough fuel off, come in and potentially get a new set of tires. However, the warm-up procedure on these tires does take a few laps now. I bet you we're just going to see drivers run this thing completely through.
Don't forget, it's the best time of the year if you're an iRacing member. It's Black Friday time now through December 2nd. 50% off new memberships, but 25% off all renewals. The biggest iRacing sale of the year is back. Scan that QR code on your screen and get hooked up for another year or 2 of your iRacing subscription. Let's talk about this car, though. We just heard that V8 rumble as the Ligier continues to make its way through in qualifying. Frattini pips Morgan Burkhardt for pole position, although instantly now bested by Boris Avando. this Ligier LMP3 car, somewhat on the older side, but we see it race in the VP Sports Car Challenge. And Joey, the engine that we just heard, it puts out about 550 odd horsepower. It's a light car, it's nimble, it's the introduction to prototypes that many make their way up through.
That's the key word, the introduction into the prototype ranks. I know you kind of look at this as the junior prototype, but trust me, folks, 450 plus horsepower out of that V8, and you see just a tick over 2,000 pounds. So when we talk about the performance window of these cars, they are incredibly fast, incredibly rapid, and they do have that aerodynamic grip.
Let's talk about Sebring Race, a historic track, but one these drivers will have done hundreds, if not thousands, of laps around.
Yes, Sebring, one of the long-standing circuits on the iRacing service, and 1950 was the first time it held races. But as you mentioned, it does have a former history as a US Army Airfield Hendricks. It's built out of the former runways and access roads of that base, and man, it's an absolute challenge. There is no lap around here that is the same as any other. Consistency is so hard to get around this place. The braking zones are heavy, plenty of overtaking opportunities, plenty of slipstream opportunities as well. I think we're going to be seeing some mad racing coming up.
I mean, I call Sunset Bend the corner of a million lines because you never seem to find that same one repetitively. They are finishing up there. 10 minutes of qualifying as we look at our IMSA Esports race format. We have a 20-minute race, all with a fixed setup as well, as we'll cover just around 11 laps or so, 40-odd miles. It's going to fly through quickly, and qualifying has come to a close. It's Boris Ovando, Solpec Precision Racing, one of the teams that we'll see racing later on in the main championship, that have done enough to go to pole position. Nathan Nicholson, late in the day, jumps up to third. The, I think, third place finisher in the Mazda MX-5 Cup Championship from 2025. But we've got a full formation lap for our drivers to warm up their tires, warm up themselves. Let's see how they'll line up for the first ever IMSA Esports P3 Challenge. Boris Ovando alongside of Christoph Herbigno, two of the best in prototype machines. What can they do with Nathan Nicholson and then Alec Bergstrom representing the Radna squad? That's a car we'll talk about, I'm sure, plenty today, alongside on row 2. Dario Frattini inside of Morgan Burkhardt representing BS Hybrid Racing for CSM in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. Ryan O'Connor inside of Jaden Conright on row 4. Conright coming off that win in the TCR class at VIR. Tyler Daniels has got Adam Brockway on the edge of the top 10. A couple of our drivers qualifying through from Grid Finder qualifiers. Leo Bonamain and then Miroslav Svoboda are 11th and 12th respectively for Austin Farr, the self-appointed maybe fastest employee in the IMSA office, or maybe dubbed by Max, our IMSA marketing representative. Kalen May will roll alongside him with Nolan Ayler, the Indy Next driver inside of Bytes Kavissa, a BS Plus hybrid row on row 8. Edwin Onofre, his Tech Sport Racing 99 is 17th. Suelio Almeida has got some fun on his hands as the professional sim racer turned racer starts in 18th. Aaron Johnson, Porsche Carrera Cup North America driver, is alongside of Donut Media co-founder James Kirkham, while Jordan Wisely, who raced TCR in IMSA a couple of years ago, 5-time MTV The Challenge winner, back in 21st position, the very first LMP3 Challenge grid. Reese, it's always interesting for these drivers, fixed setup, knowing there's not much on the line, and hopefully we're going to get a fun show across the 11 laps that we project in front of us.
Yeah, I'm hoping the same. It is only a short sprint, and that means that the drivers are going to be dialing up that aggression for sure. We'll have to wait and see how many moves are made into turn 1. Because there's a lot of opportunity to get alongside others. I've seen 3, 4, even 5 wide into turn 1 in the past. I wonder how hard these drivers are going to push it.
And I talked about the privilege of driving around this track in my rental car with Brian Till coaching me through. But Joey, talk about it from the driver's perspective. You're low to the ground as you sling your way in through turn 1. And we talk about it being wider than Road Atlanta. That's true, but I distinctly remember the feeling of claustrophobia heading up through 2, 3, 4, and 5, where things really start to compress.
You're right, it is wide on the front straightaway and through turn number 1, but once the cars get right about here at the exit of turn number 1, things definitely have a funnel effect. It goes from potentially 15 wide, if you can stack them there, all the way down to about 3 wide is really all you can fit at the apex right here at turn number 3. Most of the time, even side by side can get sketchy, but trust me, there's a second funnel effect right here at turn number 4 and 5. You better keep the car single file, or at least have some cooperation, because the exit out of turn number 5 is so important. You see all that dirt out there on driver's right. You want to stay off of it because you need the traction, the launch down here to turn number 7.
The AMD 240 is all to come. 2 hours and 40 minutes of racing with our GTP and our GTD machines. Championship points on the line in the quest for the $25,000 prize pool. This is the first of our LMP3 challenge races. One more on the streets of Long Beach in a week's time. It will be interesting to see momentum. A lot of these drivers will be returning, and maybe even we'll see some new faces, of course, with IMSA testing this weekend at the Daytona International Speedway. Always interesting looking at pictures of race cars and analyzing the changes that we'll look forward to seeing on track for the Rolex 24. Weather conditions, let's talk about them as well, because both for this race and for the main championship race later on, Reese, it's as dry as a bone, although it is a relatively warm day in the virtual March that the session sits in.
Yes, we are baking in the Florida sun at the moment. 27 degrees Celsius air temperature and 38 degrees Celsius track temperature. That is approaching 100 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you in the United States. That's certainly going to result in plenty of slippery rides around this circuit. The wind is looking interesting as well. As I just double check, we have some pretty reasonable gusts coming from the east at the moment. That should result in a slight tailwind down the back straight. And one thing's for sure, the surface here at Sebring is one of the biggest factors, Arjuna. It's concrete a lot of the way around, and when it gets hot, that gets extra slippery.
And the best thing about it is there are parts of this track that cannot be repaved, because you'd have to drag up the concrete slabs that were sunk into the ground some 70-odd years ago. And they ain't doing that one, that is for sure. I think we're in for some excitement. Let us know in chat who you're here cheering for. Maybe more significantly, who you think will come out on top. We've got a mix of sim racers and drivers from around the IMSA paddock and some IMSA friends as well for the first ever IMSA LMP3 Esports Challenge. 20 minutes of racing, fixed setup, and all a bit of a prelude. The support to the main event, the undercard to what comes later. The AMD 240, second round of the 2025 IMSA Esports Global Championship. That countdown sits on the bottom right of your screen, but we now put our eyes to the green flag. Barney waits as Boris Avando for Solpec Precision Racing gets us underway. Nathan Nicholson already alongside of Christophe Herbigno as they charge up to turn 1, and there's going to be some aggression. Surely some drivers going to take advantage of the downforce. Jaden Conwright looks to the inside of Ryan O'Connor as they sweep out through that long left-hander. Nicholson up to second momentarily. Herbigno trying to cover him back off as we watch deeper in the pack as Morgan Burkhardt, Alec Bergstrom side by side. Wiggle from Burkhardt around, goes behind Ryan O'Connor and sweeping onto Big Ben Reese.
Yes, not ideal for Ryan O'Connor. He's going to lose some crucial time here. It's the worst thing to happen on the first lap of a race that only lasts for 20 minutes. You don't have many opportunities to make that time up. Now down to the hairpin, and it looks like Ovando is starting to fall under some big pressure from Nathan Nicholson. Not quite the run that he wanted to get. I see a bit of a pile up at the rear of the field as well on the exit of the hairpin.
Johnson mixed up in that one wisely too. Nicholson on the outside as they sweep down through turn 10 at Cunningham, and now defensive as Alec Bergstrom in that Maratnas M Squad car thought he could take advantage. What we may be seeing here is cold tires as the drivers warm up their Michelin tires underneath them. But let's take a look at the replays and Joey pick our way through some of those incidents on the first half of the lap.
Yeah, lap number 1 is always a trouble time, and here's Ryan O'Connor in that turn 3, 4, 5 complex. It is just so busy, and a little bit of contact sent him around, and then a little bit further down the track into turn number 7, you see everybody spreading out, and then just a little bit of a miss on that brake zone, and unfortunately, several cars collected in that one.
Now, these aren't easy cars to drive by any means. No ABS, no traction control, and you need to trust that the car is going to stick underneath you, especially now as we close the first lap. 3.6 odd miles now complete, and still 4 at the front, barely separated. Instantly, look at them try and duck and weave and break that toe. Boris Ovando knows his track position also puts him in trouble of allowing the other cars to slingshot their way through in some of these passing zones. Back out through turn 1, passes further behind as looks like Brockway and Farr squabble out through the opening corner.
Yeah, it looks to me like Leo Bonneman making the move on Adam Brockway there, and off the circuit just ahead through turn 3. Something that we are going to see quite a lot of in the AMD 240 to come, I'm sure. Sebring very much an old school circuit with nothing but grass and potentially gravel in places lining the circuit. More moves happening into the hairpin as well. I see Burkhardt and Conright certainly making things interesting, and the pack behind, led by Callian May and Tyler Daniels, is certainly starting to heat things up as well.
Kalen May with a great start, +6 from his relatively disappointing qualifying effort. Big blocks on the run down to turn 10. Does it allow Farr to open up the entry into the right-hander? It will give him the inside as they squeeze now towards Tower Turn. Oh, very, very close, and Farr left on the wrong side of the track as now Brockway able to hold on to the spot. Behind them, Suelio Almeida has been slowly picking his way through, up 5 positions from starting towards the tail end of the field, but all that fighting has really cost them. Look at the 5 at the front, skip their way through turn 16, and Joey back onto the almond straight.
I know that we're just kind of completing lap number 2 here, or about to complete lap number 2, but it does seem like Boris Ovando, our leader, does have a good clip of space out front here, and you see in the draft, side by side, 3rd place between Nicholson and Bergstrom there going through Sunset Bend. But I keep my eye on our overall leader. That number 2 car seems to have some really good pace early on. Maybe it's just the tires coming up to temperature as we see Nicholson now slots into that 4th place position, losing 3rd to Bergstrom.
You can tough it around the outside of turn 1, but you can be pushed off into the gravel. Nicholson is still there in that Whelen Automotive Tech machine, and wow, great job. Holds on to the spot and then almost sends it off the track as they sweep through 4 and 5. You can tell, big defense, but look at the gap it's built up, 9/10 as they now, under the bridge, head off to turn 7. You've got the Sebring Hotel on the left, the pool there, a great place to sit and watch the 12 hours fly on past. I think Nicholson looking in the rearview mirror, left-hand side of him goes the Moranis M-Squad machine, cuts back underneath, and it's beautifully judged. Just enough space as they squeeze through Fangio, and Brockway moves forward, Reese.
That's Svoboda, I think, moving forward. He just passed Brockway into the hairpin. Things getting a little bit chaotic in multiple areas of the field. That fight for 11th is going to continue for quite some time, I'm sure. But have a look round the outside of Cunningham Corner for Dario Frattini there, getting himself into 3rd place. But Tower Turn comes up, and Alec Bergstrom is going to try and open the door to the inside. Doesn't always work. That's a very bumpy apex to that particular corner.
You were correct. I meant it was Bergstrom that moved forward. Great job from Frattini. Now he's got, though, a 2-second gap to close to the top 2 as Nicholson elbows out, slices his way back up. Those two clearly having a bit of a tussle between the 2 of them, Joey. They have locked themselves in battle. Nicholson off the track. Here comes the draft. Here comes Conright.
Yeah, here comes Jaden Conright. Watch for that 3rd car. He's going to go all the way down to the inside. Oh. 3 wide on the back straightaway here. I got to give it to Conright on the inside if he can carry the apex speed, but it looks like it's going to be Bergstrom in that red car really fighting tough, and now we're going to get a triple over under, 3 wide on the front straightaway again.
You know, we thought about maybe talking to some of these drivers, but I think if we try talking to them right now, we might have to mute their microphone because all sorts of shenanigans are going on. Oh, Conright almost squeezes Nicholson. How was there not contact? They are losing time, hand over fist, and suddenly Morgan Burkhardt has entered the mix as well. Pair of BS Plus hybrid cars side by side in through turn 4. It's still Bergstrom on the inside. Nicholson will get the better run as they head through Big Bend and back up to turn 7. You know who's got the biggest smile on their face through all of this? Not just us watching along, but Boris Ovando and Christoph Herbigno, Joey.
Yeah, that's exactly the point that I was going to make. Even though they are duking it out, they're starting to stretch it away from, call it this angry mid-pack of about 7 cars now. It was about 3 cars, then it expanded out to about 5, and look at this train now headed down into what is turn number 10 here at Sebring. You see already Nicholson go defensive, maybe a little bit of contract from Bergstrom, pushes him out wide.
Yeah, a bit of a squeeze there from Nicholson, if we're being honest, but he just about gets away with that, and Bergstrom is not going to take no for an answer now. Forces Conrad into submission, back into line. And I think with 12 and a half odd minutes still left to go, count that to 6 odd laps probably remaining at the end of this one. Beitske Visser, Edwin Onofre, Aaron Johnson and Jordan Wisely are looking to be DNFs here today. That's the look of focus, Reese, from those at the front. And Herbigno's just sitting there, downloading the data and plotting his next move.
Indeed he is. Boris Ovando, a driver that I've been quite familiar with over the years. He's been quite successful in LMP3 competition on the sim, but Christophe Herbigno is certainly no slouch either. I think these two are playing their cards right at the moment. It just goes to show when we had that side-by-side for 4th on back, the amount of time they lost was insane. These two up the front, they want to preserve their positions. I don't think we're going to be seeing any big moves from these guys until the last few minutes.
And here, real fast, while we've got them on the screen, I just want to point out, we always talk about the different setups in sim racing, but look at the different seating positions. Look at Boris, the steering wheel much more down in his chest, more almost kind of at his stomach level, while Christoph was that full prototype, the steering wheel pretty much over the front of his face. That's exactly how you would sit in a race car.
3/10 gain last lap by Frattini. He is closing on the leading pair. It could be a 3-way tussle at the front, but they are still squabbling behind Nathan Nicholson. Burkhardt on the inside through turn 7 as Bergstrom tries to recover. It's going to be Jaden Conrad that goes around, tagged as they switch up through turn 7, and he spins his way down to 13th, Joey.
Yeah, that was just kind of a chain reaction. We saw the accordion effect going into turn number 7. I just think that Jaden Conrad was the unlucky victim there. Definitely spun it around, and now he finds himself all the way back down into 15th. And because of that, it's actually separated out this battle a little bit. I'm curious if these runners are going to continue to fight it out, or if they say, hey, you know what, we're coming up on halfway. Let's see if we can get organized and maybe make some headway towards the front.
I mentioned earlier that Boris Ovando represents Solpec Precision Racing. They will be racing in the main championship slightly later on. We saw a great run from one of their Porsche 963s. Leading the race in the early part of the season a couple of weeks ago. Christophe Herbigno representing Delatraz Automotive. That's the team that won the last 2 of the LMP2 iRacing special event broadcast splits, both at the Indy 6-hour and more recently the final VCO Grand Slam, the iRacing Petit Le Mans. The GTP and GTD winners of that broadcast split got an invite into this IMSA Esports Global Championship. However, LMP2, unfortunately, don't get that same reward. Bottom of your screen, you can see the drivers that made their way into the Global Championship. Qualifying moments away from beginning, Reese. 10 minutes, 4 laps, and drivers really do need to try and succeed, because in past years, I was looking through the history books, qualifying up front is a recipe for success.
Yeah, certainly is. Sebring, such a brutal circuit, as we've said a few times now, that if you can get a good qualifying position and escape the chaos of lap 1, you'll certainly be on your way to a successful day. But it's good to see that little look into the preparations for the race to come. As you said, this is merely the prelude to what is going to happen later on. Some exchanges happening, meanwhile, for P8 here. It looks like Leo Bonneman and Tyler Daniels will be going at it for a bit here. Coming up to Cunningham, defensive from Bonneman. Got to be careful not to get on the brakes too late there. The braking point is a lot later than you expect, but whatever momentum you lose there, you carry all the way through to Tower Turn, and you've got a massive flat-out section afterwards. This is going to be a good opportunity for Daniels to set up a move.
Kind of got a question for Joey. At Monza, at turn 1, counterintuitively, sometimes it's better to be in the middle of the track than on the left because of how bumpy the surface can be. Think about Sebring, a lot of heavy braking zones as Tyler Daniels sits in virtual reality plotting his way to find that next move. Oh, a bit of mistake actually there from Bonneman. That might allow him that opportunity to close, but The question, Joey, is there anywhere at Sebring where sometimes it's not actually bad to be slightly offline trying to make a move?
Yes, 100%. And, you know, in these LMP3 cars, since they're all the same, I don't think that we're going to see too many alternate lines right now in the remaining 8 minutes. However, when we get to the big show, when we have the prototypes mixed in with the GT cars, we're really going to see those alternate lines. And one of them is right here into turn number 1. I think the racing line has pretty much scraped the mirror on that left side concrete wall. However, if you got traffic, you can really use the aerodynamic grips in the prototype cars to kind of slingshot it around the outside. Another corner right here, turn number 5. That apex curb, don't upset the platform of the car. However, sometimes the apex curb can definitely help turn the car. You, as a driver, just kind of have to analyze each situation. You either avoid the bumps or use them to your advantage.
And that's why the best drivers understand the nuance of the track. Bonneman goes out wide. Tyler Daniels plugs that hole. And through Fangio, through 7, 8, and 9, Moose has happened. Now, can Austin Farr slide up the inside at turn 10? He's used that draft to great effect, but thinks wiser of it. Maybe sees a chance if Bonneman goes deep to cut through, but this is where the track does get rather claustrophobic in my mind. 7 minutes left to go. The gap is stabilized between the leaders and Dario Frattini. Last lap, he actually lost about 0.4 of a second. What we haven't seen yet, Reese, is any signs of a move from Christophe Herbigno as he sits and stews and waits for the final lap of this race.
Yeah, you called it right there. I think Herbigno is just waiting for that opportunity. He knows that he can run faster than Ovando, and Herbigno has the fastest lap of the race, but not by much. Only 100th of a second or so. I think that's going to be something we'll have to keep an eye out for in the next few minutes, see if he tries to round anything up on Ovando. But for the moment, this fighting is looking great for P8 on back. This all the way back to Adam Brockway in P12, and now there's a move there. Austin Farr getting up the inside of Leo Bonneman on the exit of Sunset Bend, an incredibly bumpy exit. I think Bonneman might have tapped the wall there as well. They'll keep that side-by-side going through turn 1, but there's a slight switchback from Austin Farr. No opportunity to get up the inside, though. Very narrow into turn 4.
You've got to give Ryan O'Connor his credit as well, because slowly catching up to these drivers as they continue to bleed time. Caught up on lap 1, not letting him let that get him down. I think Nathan Nicholson and Morgan Burkhardt may close up, but I tell you what, let's take in the sights of this Ligier carving around Sebring. Let's go. iRacing full throttle. To tussle, 4 minutes left to go, 3 laps should be left to rumble. Is this the chance for Dario Frattini to close up behind Morgan Burkhardt, Nathan Nicholson? They're squabbling, they're taking themselves out of contention, but Reese Christophe Herbigno saw a chance and Boris Ovando said, no, you won't.
Yes, Ovando is a very fierce competitor, a fierce defender as well, from what I've seen of him in the past. And he's going to keep that going as long as he possibly can here. We're starting to get to crunch time in the end of this race. Herbigno is keeping it in the slipstream, which is good. But when it comes to the braking zones, it looks like he's just going a little bit deeper than Ovando, particularly in the hairpin. That's costing him a bit of time at the apex, not as much momentum through the corner. So I think he's going to have to try some alternate way of getting out of these corners if he really wants to make that move on Ovando. Still, the Ullman straight, I think, is his best chance, but will Ovando let him through? is the big question.
And to that point, Joey, fixed setup means that the drivers are trying to adjust their style rather than getting the car to adjust to them.
Correct. Consider it spec racing. All of these LMP3 cars, that's a fantastic battle. Down on the bottom of the screen here for what is 11th place. That's Austin Farr and Brockway going at it. But you're right, fixed setup means spec racing. Everybody's in the exact same equipment. It is really up to the driver and how much they've taken care of that equipment. Did you abuse the tires early on? And in fact, here goes Herbigno for the lead in turn 16. Such a tricky low grip corner, and Boris Ovando was just way out wide.
The problem is you always try and open up the entry. Look at the bottom. Look how far beyond the white line they've gone, but Ovando slipped up and Herbigno saw his opportunity. And 2 laps now for them to squabble with one driver in the draft, in the wheel tracks, and slowly closing. Dario Frattini started down in 5th and now finds himself in that hunt for the lead. Into turn 1, almost contact between them as Ovando, the Bolivian, right around the outside. Surely not. There's still contact between the two of them as they pinch up into 3. Here comes the chance. Ovando goes off the track. Frattini closes up as Herbigno slips off into the grass. And here comes the Italian, Dario Frattini, who momentarily hits the lead, Reese.
Talk about opportunistic. All it took was that little move, that little mistake from Boris Ovando coming onto the Ullman straight, and it just all kicked off at once as, Frattini catches a little bit of the grass on the way into the hairpin. Herbigno will hold on to the lead, but for how long is the question. Frattini spent a long time with no slipstream as the leaders refused to do battle with each other. They did. Then there was the trade. Then Ovando tried desperately to get back past Christophe Herbigno. It did not work out for him. Herbigno didn't give him an inch. How much is he going to give Frattini?
Wow, this is great racing. It's a good thing that this is all just in good fun. They pushed each other hard, and they'll at least go back and look at it with a little less aggression than maybe our drivers in the Global Championship will do, with championship implications, as we've seen already in round 1. Ryan O'Connor back up to 12th position now behind Austin Farr. Lead is not done, though. We'll see the white flag next time by, Joey. There will be just under 6 kilometers left to settle things.
Yeah, we're coming up to that white flag, but this is such a fantastic battle for a top 10 position. So this red car driven by Brockway, then Austin Farr in the gray and red car, Ryan O'Connor in that Solpeck Precision Green, and Jaden Conroy. You got to remember those 2 cars giving chase. They had early incidents as our leader gets the white flag here at Sebring.
And we don't really do formal race control by any means for this LMP3 challenge. Just big send from O'Connor forces Austin Farr to give him a little bit of room. Behind them, hard into the wall goes Jaden Conroy with the left side. He will limp that car back around to finish off this race. Half a second covers the top 2. 2/10 covers 3rd and 4th position. Big send as Farr goes spinning out through turn number 1, but all 3 podium positions could be up for grabs as that LMP3 explodes in the tire bundles, Reese.
Yeah, that was an absolutely huge crash for Austin Farr, and I mean, there's plenty of runoff at turn 1, but he used every inch of it, and he still needed more. That's one of the consequences of that high-speed contact into turn 1. But for the moment, it looks like Herbigno has managed to find something extra here coming onto the final lap. The gap between he and Frattini is hovering at around 4 to 5 tenths of a second, and I get the feeling Herbigno might be able to hold on to this. It's going to be all about the exit onto the Ullman straight.
There's one opportunity potentially for Herbigno to slip up coming out of Tower Corner. Dig your left side into the gravel. That slows your momentum. Doesn't seem as though he's lost any ground there. RI still locked on the fight for 7. Morgan Burkhardt once running as high as 3rd position, if I remember correctly. Now down in 9th in that BS Plus hybrid split machine. BS competition working with plenty of the real world racers. Not just here in the LMP3 Challenge, but across the various sim racing competitions as well. There's a drag race for 3rd, it would seem, but not at the front of the field. A bit of drama, but some great racing in the very first IMSA Esports LMP3 Challenge. A prelude, maybe, to drama later on in the AMD 240. But Christophe Herbigno for Delatraz Automotive by Majors Garage wins at the Sebring International Raceway, Joey.
What a fantastic race from Herbigno, just staying patient, snagging away that win, that lead position there in turn numbers 1, 2, and 3 as we get this battle for what is 7th place crossing the line. I believe that was actually Ryan O'Connor beating out Jaden Conright by just a few hundredths of a second, but all credit goes to that number 92 car, victorious here at Sebring.
And we'll see many of these drivers back next week on the streets of Long Beach for the second and final race in this LMP3 challenge. Boy, is that going to be interesting from Sebring to Long Beach. It doesn't really get much different than that. This, I believe, is Beitske Visser, who has elected to go out there and finish off the race. Involved in all that lap 1 drama, Reese, but this is great to see.
Yeah, indeed. Good to see that she's gotten back out there and will, at the very least, get a finish there. It's a shame that we ended up losing 5 drivers total from that race. It would have been great to see them all get to the finish, but them's the breaks sometimes, and there's plenty to break on the car when you come to Sebring.
Oh, that's why they come here and use it as the endurance tester at the end of the day. Christophe Herbigno, 7/10 clear from, well, Dario Frattini, who closed and closed, but it wasn't enough. Maybe a lap or 2 more, he could have had a crack. Nathan Nicholson, the best of our IMSA invitees in the PRG 56, representing Whelen Automotive Tech. Alec Bergstrom for Miranda's M Squad. We'll see that livery slightly later on. Touch on that later. Kaylin May, 2 of the Delatraz teammates inside the top 5 with Tyler Daniels, Leo Bonneman, Morgan Burkhardt, Miroslav Svoboda, and Adam Brockway, the top 10. 11th for O'Connor, 12th for Conright, 13th for Swelio Almeida with Nolan Ayler, James Kirkham, the final finishers on the lead lap, Austin Farr, Boris Avando. Unfortunate issues for them, while Beitske Visser, Edwin Onofre, Aaron Janson, and then at the tail end of the field, as we wrap up the look through our results here in the IMSA Esports LMP3 Challenge. Just a couple more drivers. Let's go and see, though, if we can grab a quick chat with our race winner, standing by with Joey Atterbury.
Yeah, here with Christophe Herbigno, of course, winning that race that we just got to watch. And talk us through that pass for the lead. What an aggressive move that lasted a couple corners.
Yes, what a race. I'm really happy about this victory. It's really intense. This race was really difficult because the track was really slippery, and during all the race I tried to stay behind Boris, and yes, unfortunately in the end of the race, yes, this incident. It's sad because I'm not sure that's my fault or the fault by Boris, but I think it's a little net code. My car was stuck with him, so it's really sad to finish the race like that. But yes, for me it's really great to win this race.
And I think everybody watching was hoping that you guys were going to battle all race long. Was it the strategy to try to extend the gap away from everybody else and then just battle amongst yourself at the end?
Yes, it's really important to create a gap on Dario Frattini and the drivers, and my goal is to overtake Boris in the end of the race. But yes, it's my goal. Yes.
Well, Christophe, fantastic job collecting that first win here in the LMP3 Challenge. Congratulations here at Sebring.
Oh, thank you, and see you soon.
We'll see him next week at Long Beach, but it's time for us to dive into Countdown to Green, presented by Michelin, just 16 odd minutes away from the second round of the IMSA Esports Global Championship, the AMD 240. And boy, did we see some electric racing in round 1 at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Our traditional season opener was the perfect place for us once again to get the season underway, and with the biggest field that the series has ever seen. Let's take a look at the Countdown to Green intro.
Tonight on Countdown to Green, we look back at the action from the clash on the beach. We preview what's ahead in the Harvest Cup. And we've got wheels to give away through Logitech G. All of that and more coming up on Countdown to Green.
This is Countdown to Green, presented by Michelin at the Sebring International Raceway. The first time that this race has moved slightly earlier in the season, and therefore maybe with some interesting championship complexions. Next time out, of course, some very different form of racing, but 2 hours and 40 minutes about to be put onto the clock. Arjuna Kankipati alongside of Reese Gardner, Joey Atterbury, and after an electric season opener at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta Reese, we are ready to go for the first of a double-header set of races.
Yeah, interesting point that you raise about Sebring being moved earlier in the calendar. It was very much a championship-defining race last season, and we're thinking that's going to be the same case here. If anyone loses momentum at this round of the championship, it's going to be very hard to recover in the final 2 rounds.
Absolutely. Joey, we've got a wildcard entry joining us for this round.
Yeah, it'll be pretty interesting to have them out there. And of course, we always are trying to bring in those alternate entries. And here is that wild card entry from Mirandus. They're driving that Mercedes AMG GT3, driven by none other than Daniel Morad and Nathan Olson. So they were not participating a week, or I should say a couple weeks ago, at Road Atlanta. This is that wild card entry. Pretty cool paint on this thing. Easy to catch the eye.
Two-time Rolex 24 winner Daniel Mora, 2017 and 2024, joins us here in the IMSA Esports Global Championship. Should be a lot of fun. Let's dive, though, Reese, into our track analysis.
Absolutely. Sebring International Raceway, 6 kilometers or 3 3/4 miles. An incredible racetrack. No elevation change to speak of, but I think Sebring really proves that you don't need to go up and down to have a good time at a racetrack. I mean, you get plenty of vertical movement from the bumps in any case, but as I said earlier on in the show, plenty of overtaking opportunities around this place, but you got to be careful to respect those bumps. We have the Williams Esports Chill Blast car that ended up winning the GTP title as the previous winners of this race. They'll certainly be hoping to repeat that. The curbs as well can be quite brutal around here, especially in turns 3, 4, and 5, that little squiggle you see in the middle. It's going to be very difficult to find your space there, especially on the opening lap.
Let's dive into a lap around this Sebring International Raceway, brought to you by AMD with BMW driver Robbie Foley.
Hey everybody, I'm back. My name's Robbie Foley. I'm a BMW M Motorsport Works driver and driver of the number 96 Turner Motorsport BMW M4 GT3 Evo in the IMSA WeatherTech Championship. I'm here to take you all on a lap of the virtual Sebring, so come with me. We're headed down to turn 1. You're going to follow the wall all the way down. Very high-speed committed corner. Late braking down to 4th gear, getting right up to the wall at the apex. Squeezing on throttle through the bumps, really riding the bumps out all the way on exit up to 5th gear. And braking hard down to 2nd gear for turn 3. Tricky corner here as you jump over the curb for turn 4. Up to 3rd, back down to 2nd for turn 5. Very important to get a good exit onto the little straight here, which has a bend in it on our way to turn 7. Big brake zone, very good passing opportunity here into the famous hairpin. Braking just before the 30 marker. I like to use 2nd gear, get the nose in, try to get a good exit. Again, bumpy on exit. Headed down to turn 10. Another good passing opportunity. Tricky with prototype traffic here in the GT cars. Braking hard around the 3, down to 2nd gear. On throttle, tricky through turn 11 to keep it flat. The rear is always fighting you a bit. And working our way back to the left side of the road, getting parallel to the entry curve of turn 13, 3rd gear. Get the nose in, a little bit of camber and banking in that corner, which helps tuck the nose in, trying to get a good exit. Working our way down to turns 15 and 16. Really cool section of corners here with a good rhythm. Down to 3rd gear. Quick transition back to the left, try to open up turn 16 as much as you can to get a good exit. And trying to get a good exit onto the long back straightaway. Headed into the famous turn 17, which is a super tricky corner. One of the most unique in racing. The entry is initially blind. We're going to turn in flat. turning in flat, now braking hard initially. Under the bridge now, squeezing the throttle through the bumps. Up to 4th gear, 5th gear, back to start finish, and that's a lap around Sebring.
Well, we're moments away from the AMD 240 qualifying in the books. All that is left is to let them loose. Joey, we'll start with you because I distinctly remember that race last year when Williams took the win and set themselves up in prime position for the championship. What are you expecting as we get ready to go for round 2 this season?
We already kind of hinted at it that last year. This round right here at Sebring was kind of a pivotal moment in that championship. Is it going to be that same type of story that we're going to see here today? Remember, back at Road Atlanta, that multi-class traffic played havoc with our GTP leaders, not just at the beginning, not just at the driver change, but all the way towards the end of the race. That's what I'm looking for, is how nice are the prototypes and the GTs going to play today?
And what about you, Reese?
Yeah, I think I'll echo that sentiment from Joey. I think traffic is going to be just as important as it was at Road Atlanta, but in a slightly different way. I mentioned the turns 3, 4, 5 complex where you're twisting back and forth on your run onto the back stretch to Big Bend. I think that's one of the places we're going to be seeing the prototypes suffer the most in traffic. I think everyone just needs to give each other space, give each other respect, and you'll be able to get through nicely. But we all know how competitive this championship is. I don't think anyone's going to leave anything on the table here.
Definitely not. That is not what the IMSA Esports Global Championship is all about. And I think that wraps up Countdown to Green, presented by Michelin. It's now all eyes forward as we get set, minutes away from the start of the AMD 240. Let's dive into the action here in the IMSA Esports Global Championship.
Trumpets blowing in the distance. Been broken, couldn't keep me down. I'm back better than ever now. These are the moments that define us. Do it wrong, do it right. We're taking everything we're feeling, blowing through the ceiling. This is the story that remember. No peace, no surrender. You can't kill a legend, legends never die.
The sun shines on round 2 of the IMSA Esports Global Championship, the AMD 240. Here we will see who will make themselves known as title contenders and who has got an uphill fight for the rest of 2025. Hi folks, Arjuna Kankipati here on the IMSA YouTube channel and of course on the iRacing Esports Network. Joined alongside by Reese Gardner and by Joey Atterbury. And Reese, we've already seen one great race with the LMP3s. We've run our way through Countdown to Green. I'm getting excited. Minutes away from getting racing once again at such a historic track.
Yeah, I wish I had a time machine so I could skip forward a few minutes and get straight to the racing action. Sebring always turns it up for pure action and pure love of motorsports as well. This is one of the most iconic racetracks in the United States, nay the world, for very good reason.
And Joey, this is the track as well that with sunshine expected throughout. We already talked with the LMP3 drivers. Bit slippery is the conditions reported out in these sessions.
It is Florida after all, so yes, it is a heater out there in the sim racing world. Warm temperatures. When I think of warm track temperatures, the drivers, it's gonna be slippery.
And Reese, an interesting mix to the schedule. This, of course, round 2. Next time out, Joey, we head to round number 3.
Yeah, we are sitting here at Sebring International Raceway for round number 2 of this championship. And then the coming weeks, we're actually going to have the 2 races. Remember, the Long Beach Street Circuit is the prototypes, while Virginia International Raceway is going to be the GTD cars only. So same date separate races, and then, of course, we are going to end it at Daytona International Speedway in the first week of December.
And three letters that put fear into any sports car racing fan's heart: balance of performance. Reese, talk us through the changes for this round.
Yes, indeed. So for this round, we have some extra weight and less power for three of our GTP machines. The Acura ARX06 with a little bit of a fuel tank reduction as well. The Ford Mustang in the GTD class has certainly gained a little bit of weight, 10 kilos, plus 5 for the Aston Martin, and plus 7 for the Lamborghini Huracan. Pretty much every car except for the Porsche 911 has had a decrease in power as well, which is going to be very crucial for the long straights of Sebring. I would expect those Porsches to potentially have a slight advantage if the bob ends up getting a little bit worse for the other cars, but I'm sure that this is going to be super equal amongst all of our GTD competitors and the prototypes as well. It's going to be super tight out there.
The balance of performance brought to you by AMD, as is our Pole Award. The AMD Pole Award for the second week or second event in a row goes the way of, I was under the impression it was a pair of IMSA Esports machines, but the graphic on our screen shows Drago Racing get pole position in the GTP class, although I do believe it is Porsche Coanda for the second event in a row that will actually line up on pole position. It's the Coanda GTP, the Corvette, in GTD rather, that does get it done. Although this time, Joey, it's a different Coanda machine. It's a 118, not the 181.
Yeah, it's Tristan Iglesias and Michael Janney driving that GT Corvette out there, so it'll be really exciting. Remember, they were hanging out inside the top 5 at Road Atlanta, upping their game here at Sebring.
And so, with our pole awards handed out, let's get ready to go racing. 2 hours and 40 minutes will be thrown onto the clock, and in what is a relatively warm and maybe not so humid day in the Sunshine State, we will go racing. Let's dial a look at the starting grid for the AMD 240, where in the GTP class, Williams Esports, now Williams Sim Racing, look to win their third race on the bouncing class as they look to try and defend their championship as well after a slightly sluggish start to the season at the Michelin Raceway, Road Atlanta. Here's a look at the starting grid where Elvis Rankin, new pair of drivers for Porsche Coanda, but it doesn't matter who drives the car, it's fast. They've got Alexander Spetz, who had a great fight back in round 1 to get onto the podium alongside BMW Team Redline, and then the second of the Team Redline machines share row 2. Dominic Hoffman for BMW BS Plus competition is inside of Solpec Virtual Mindset as they look to try and shine once more. Inside of row number 4 in 7th position will be Loic Rabier in the CrowdStrike racing car that started on pole 12 months ago here. Jesse Tekela for Grid and Go in the Cadillac is then in 8th position, while Maxime Briant, the rock and rolling Frenchman, starts in 9th for Apex Racing. Defending champions Jaden Munoz and Matt Farrow have it all to do from 10th to make it 3 wins on the bounce, while Moreno Sarica Williams Gaming Club will try and work with the sister car. Jake Dennehan, the second Grid and Go Cadillac, starts in 12th, hopefully not unlucky 13th. For Marcus Hamilton in the second of the CrowdStrike Acuras. Casey Kerwin, the Eagle, roars from 14th position for Channel 199, while Maniti's Cadillac starts inside of the second Solpec Precision car. Jordan Johnson led the race in the opening hour at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, buried in the field. Fiercely Forward and Coucher, then 17th and 18th positions, with just 2 more teams in the stacked GTP class in the AMD 240, the second Maniti entry, this time a BMW, alongside the Hungarian outfit IMSA Esports. Down to the GTDs, where a pair of Corvettes sit on the front row and with a fuel advantage potentially to run through the race. Tristan Iglesias won here last year in the Rexley liveried AO Racing by Coanda car. Alejandro Sanchez comes off the win at Road Atlanta a few weeks ago. Marla and PGZ share row 2 with Virtus Pro and the Additus Racing by WSR crew 5th and 6th positions in their Mercedes. Fiercely Forward and EMM in Lamborghini split row 4, while Simify and the Porsche Scuderia Ferrari HP Esports team in 10th position make up those top 5 rows. Florian Lebigra in the defending champion Aston Martin Redline machine. A lot of work to do from 11th. Apex Racing in the Ford Mustang roll alongside as the Frenchman Johan Hoff starts the car. Drago Racing, BS Plus Turner share row 7, Visceral and WSR share row 8, with Drago Racing, Williams Sim Racing place seat just inside of your top 20, about halfway through the starting formation. On row 10, Dino Lombardi in the Grid and Go Ford Mustang, Veloce Thrustmaster in the Ferrari, 19th and 20th respectively, with Fiercely Forward and Team PGZ directly behind them. IMSA Esports, their Chevrolet, is alongside of the EMM Porsche all the way back in 24th position. 25th and 26th will be Apex Racing and Chezha in the Ford and Porsche respectively, while Mag Performance and Door Esports then line up on row number 14. Row 15 for Altitude Freem Esports and the Maradness Invitational entry. They don't score points, they can take them away though from the rest of the field, while Aston Martin Aramco Esports, Windward Esports and Impulse Racing by GTU make up the 33-car starting grid in the GTD class. A big field, a chance for me to take a breath, and a chance for Reese to talk about our Michelin keys to the race.
Absolutely. So Sebring is a bumpy circuit, and of course you have to respect those bumps. They really do a number on your suspension. You got to keep your helmet on a swivel as well. Keep your eyes peeled through the twistier, slower parts of this circuit, because there's not much room to run side by side, and there's every chance that you will come a cropper and have a big incident. Also, don't fly too close to the sunset. Sunset Bend is brutal at the best of times. A huge bump in the middle of the final corner, just under the bridge, and we will certainly see plenty of hard racing coming out of that corner, as well as there's a lot of opportunities to make up moves all the way through this circuit, but championship is something we're going to be thinking about for sure.
Well, obviously, in that opening round of the championship race, we did see some drama, I think, in terms of our championship storylines. And let's start with Williams Sim Racing Chill Blast, our defending champions, who finished the race, I think it was down in 10th position after a penalty on pit lane for speeding and then mixed up in other misfortunes. This is a race they've won twice in a row. In my opinion, they need to win it a third time in a row to keep themselves in championship top race.
Yeah, they certainly will. Oh man, just keeping an eye on the surroundings of this circuit. You know, this place is hallowed ground, isn't it? So much history to this place, and just so much racetrack to take advantage of, particularly through Tower Turn here. Notably, very thin curb on the exit of the corner there. That's the case for a few turns around this place. You dip a wheel off there, let the traction control kick in too hard, you will be sent straight into the wall.
Expectations, I think, will now start to build as the field gets their instructions to form up 2 by 2. 20 GTPs, 33 GTD machines, the biggest field of IMSA Esports competition. Next time out is a very different form of racing, as a little bit of consternation and checkup at the back of that GTP pack. Race Control will take their look. But we'll have 2 75-minute sprints, one on the streets of Long Beach for these prototypes, one at the rolling hills of the Virginia International Raceway for the GTDs. This is a very messy start, all things considered. Let's get ready to go, though, for the AMD 240. The green flag flies. Second round of the IMSA Esports Global Championship is underway, and instantly Chris Lollam is putting the pressure on Alexander Spetz. The other red line machine is trying to cut underneath, and they'll both try and slice up the inside on the run up towards turn 3. First time on the brakes hard. Lollam already through, and Luke McEwen follow. He won here a couple of years ago in the GTD class. He knows what it takes as they squeeze out through Big Bend, and Alexander Spetz is demoted down to 4th. Great jump from Tristan Iglesias as he works with his teammate as they head up to turn 1 in that GTD class. Watch for Virtus Pro, Kevin Ellis Jr. in that white and orange front-ended machine. That Mercedes aggressive on Leandro Andaruti as they sweep out through turn 1. Out of the hairpin, GTP safely get their way through. It's a tidy start, Reese.
Yeah, certainly is. Surprised that there wasn't much more jostling in the GTP pack coming out of turn 1. Some good gains made from the Solpic Precision Racing number 60, Jordan Johnson at the wheel, and up 4 positions for the moment. Nicholas Mateo in the Drago Racing 169 in GTD seems to be the hardest charger so far, gaining 3 spots already on the first lap. The GTPs made it through the hairpin all right. The GTDs, on the other hand, it's looking like a bit of a traffic jam there, a little squirrel on the exit for the Aston Martin.
Although all 33 are still pointed in the right direction. The Aston Martin Aramco Esports crew have dropped to the very tail end of the field, though. Have to keep an eye on them. Would have expected Lasse Bak and Rasmus Christensen to have a bit more speed underneath them. Onto the Almond Straight, let the legs scamper, and that's a big block, almost into that DRS board as aggressive from Jaden Munoz. Jordan Johnson matches him below the white line as Grit and Go follow suit. Jake Dennehan, the Irishman, no quarter taken at this point. This is a little bit aggressive on the opening lap of the race. Not even 2 minutes complete, but Joey, you can tell how important track position is. Not even hitting traffic for the first time as GTD's almost 3 wide into Jean-Dominion Bend.
Yeah, we were just commenting on how tough the prototypes are racing, but look at the back of the field. Call it mid-pack on back for these GTDs. It's single file for, call it, the first 10 cars, and now we're getting those 2 wide, even 3 wide down the Almond Straight. The big defensive moves at the end of the straightaway here, just trying to dissuade anybody from sneaking it up the inside. And we got to remember, relatively cold tires, relatively low pressure still on these cars on the opening lap. The drivers trying to extract the performance while still tiptoeing.
Saying goodbye to Elvis Rankin, almost now 1.7 seconds clear at the very front of the field as aggressive look from Veloce Thrustmaster. Visceral in the Lamborghini get pinched as Drago, the red and white Aston Martin, is just in front of them, trying to hold on. This is helter-skelter madness, contact bumper cars being played through the braking zone, and somehow the Veloce car shoves its nose on the inside of the Drago Aston Martin and is going to force its way past Nicolas Matteo as the Lamborghini, Alessandro Pico, Williams Sim Racing place each stricken in the middle of the track race.
Yeah, certainly is. It looks like Norby Kish in the IMSA Esports Porsche, as well as Dennis Grabowski in the Free M Esports Corvette, have also had trouble in that area of the circuit. The 121 is missing its rear wing, so there's plenty of damage already there at the back end of the GT field, and probably a few unhappy faces in those garages. An eye on the GTP field, though. It looks like they've sorted themselves out for the most part. Single file, though we do see the Acura there ahead starting to round up a little into Sunset Bend. Now's the point where you get into the rhythm of the race. You know, you've got a long way ahead of you. 2 hours and 40 minutes is not nothing.
You know what? I can't quite believe I'm going to say this and put the curse of the commentator down, Joey, but that is amongst the cleanest start that we have ever seen in the IMSA Esports Global Championship.
And I mean, how wild was it? Yeah, the prototypes, I agree with you, were relatively tame until they got to the back half of the racetrack, and then down the Almond Straight, they were getting pretty aggressive with the blocks. But if you looked at that GT field, sure, the top 5, maybe top 7 were playing nice single file, but it was literally double file from, call it, 12th place all the way back to 33rd in the GTD classes. We still see some 2 wide going through turn number 17, Sunset Bend here at Sebring.
And in all of those incidents in the GTD class, actually, it's just come to my attention as Veloce slot back in behind Drago on the run up to turn 1. That's big crash on the start straight. That's Impulse tangled up. Lasse Bak, I think, got mixed up too. But who was the one that took the brunt of the impact? That's what we'll have to wait and see. One of the cars that's in that vicinity, though, is the championship defending car. Team Redlines 101, down 19 positions, Reese. They are having a torrid start to their championship defense.
Yeah, certainly are. Had a great result at Road Atlanta. Got a pretty reasonable result, I should say, but this has not gone well for them so far at Sebring. It is a long race, as I mentioned, but yeah, I think they're going to have to pick that pace up if they want any chance of keeping their championship hopes alive. It is a very short season, only 4 rounds, only 4 opportunities to get points.
Yeah, and that means for teams that got tangled up like Porsche Coanda in that opening round on cold tires, they are needing to break away here. Already almost 2 seconds clear as the length of the track at Sebring being close to 3.5 miles does mean that traffic going to take us a handful of laps to get to. Here's a look at the replay as out through Sunset Bend. So the Aston Martin tries to maybe go out wide, gets ran into by the World Sim Racing car, and then ping pong is played. This is what happened to Redline, and it's so innocent, Joey, but big consequences.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see the GT field has multiple incidents. I believe this was actually one of the first laps. This is the turn 5 section I believe that's how the Lamborghini got turned around a little bit earlier. So yeah, right now it is Coanda Esports leading out front, the 118 over the 181. Very similar to kind of what we saw back at Road Atlanta, where these Corvettes really just dominated the front of the field, had a good clip on their fuel advantage too. I'm going to be curious to see if the Corvettes can kind of carry that same momentum when we talk about the fuel, because their race pace right now looks to be fantastic.
It's like a cheat code, isn't it? Not only can they say fuel, but they're rapid and race trim as well. It's seemingly not fair, as the top three somewhat stretch themselves apart, not yet having latched onto the back of the GTD traffic. Our eyes locked on Alexander Spetz. A great recovery drive. He threw it off the road at turn 1 at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, and then all the way back into a podium spot. And so, yes, qualified second down to 4th. But still in a better position than they were this time a couple of weeks ago. Behind them, Mats Muir, and checking back in with the GTD pack momentarily. But Reese, remember Robin Schwanker, who was driving that Solpex 62 and then got tangled up in some contact in the opening stint of the race? The look of devastation, because it goes to what we've already talked about here. Short championship, they have just maybe lost their chance of competing at the very front.
Yeah, certainly. It's always painful to see that, and you know, not only is there not many opportunities to get points, but the points you do get are massive. We're talking 350 points for a race win, and a tenth of those points for qualifying positions. So it's not just the races you have to think about. Qualifying is also important. Points on the line there too.
I mean, just look at the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship this year, where, if not for the misfortunes of Dragon Speed, it was single digits that were going to split them and the Pratt & Miller Corvette crew for the GTD Pro Championship. Speaking of, Dragon Speed announced in the time between the last round of the Global Championship and this one that they are switching in the real world over to a Corvette. Always interesting in the real world silly season. Sim racing silly season will kick off right as we wrap up at Daytona, and we'll see a whole bunch of new drivers, I would assume, with some teams when we return here in 2026. Your leader, I think, is going to catch the traffic next time by. They are just coming through Sunset Bend right now, Joey. First time by is always the most stressful because the traffic's all checked up. It's always when it gets the most intense.
And I'm looking at my timing and scoring, which has all 53 cars on it. And going through that GT field, I see maybe 2 or 3 gaps, but for the most part, it's just like I-5 traffic out there, just sitting in rush hour. It is going to be a long slog for these GTP cars to decisively make their way through. Now, one thing that is a little bit different here at Sebring than what we didn't see at Road Atlanta, these prototypes can kind of scoot around the outside of some of these corners, so it may open up some alternate lines for these higher aerodynamic machines to make that grip.
On board with the Porsche Coanda, Elvis Rankin at the wheel. Last time this car was driven by the Australian duo, Jordan Caruso, Josh Rogers. This time it's Elvis Rankin splitting responsibilities with Charlie Collins, and Elvis has had a couple of struggles with some health issues, but on the mend and starting to show the world exactly why he is part of this Porsche Coanda lineup. 2 seconds to the good now over Chris Lullum. And as you exit here out of Tower Turn, there is the first inkling. So actually, it's going to work out relatively okay here, Reese, I think, for Rankin. He will catch the traffic maybe on the Omen Straight, heading down the main straight as well. And the man from Show Low, Texas, is going to have an opportunity to breathe before he gets into the meat of the traffic.
Yes, that's very crucial for a GTP car, being the first one there in the background to come up upon the GT traffic on the straightest section of this entire racetrack. But once he gets into turns 3, 4, and 5, he'll be right in the meat of the GT pack, which is going to be far from ideal for him. That might be an opportunity for the 2 Team Redline BMWs behind to make some gains. That lead is already out to 2.4 seconds or thereabouts for Rankin, and that can vanish in an instant in traffic like this.
Oh, exactly. And we've seen that in the past as well, as looks like an issue through traffic for some. Dennis Grabowski in the Altitude 3M machine has lost a whole bunch of ground. And I see as well that Lasse back in the Aston Martin Aramco machine has gone off track as well. So both the cars already involved in incidents, just adding to the misery potentially, is not yet really hitting that majority of the traffic. We're looking at the Solpec Virtual Mindset 62, but the other Solpec Precision machine, Joey, started down in a 16th position, if I remember correctly. Jordan Johnson has already gained 7 spots, cracked the top 10.
Yeah, he's sitting up there in 9th and is actually, at least from my screen, only about 4 seconds or so back. But it really has been Max Muir starting to apply the pressure to Alexander Spetz here in that number 69 Drago racing machine. And I will say that Max has been here the entirety of the 7 laps that the prototypes have done. But this is where it starts to get interesting, right? We've passed maybe a couple GT cars, and just like how we heard Reese say a minute ago, we are going to get into the thick of this GT traffic now. So can Max Muir have the door open? Can he scooch through and keep in touch with Spetz? Or is there going to be a GT car close the door at Apex? This is that ebb and flow, that seesaw battle. Which are you going to get through more efficiently?
And as they always say, the traffic gives and it takes, usually in equal measure, even though you always feel like it's taking just that little bit more from you. Another driver in virtual reality as we look at the Atlanta native. Didn't even get a chance to, I think, drive the car in race trim last week, but stops this time around as the lights flash. Elvis Rankin letting the field know that he's coming through at turn 1. He'll pass the EMM Porsche as they head onto the brakes in through turn 3, and the gap holding steady back to Chris Lullum, who's not having to be too aggressive through traffic. They are putting a bit more of a gap, though, back to the rest of the GTP cars, at least for the time being. Only on the 8th lap of this race, but the fuel window for the GTP cars, Reese, probably being around 45-50 minutes. This is an opportunity as well for them to save a little bit of their fuel.
Yeah, indeed. Any fuel that you can save in traffic is going to pay dividends later on, and I'm sure that the drivers will be keeping that in mind, but it's not going to be worth anything if you don't end up getting to the pit cycle in the first place. Just look at the chicanery going on here on the way down to Cunningham Corner. It's insane, the dartiness of these GTP cars. You really got to require some massive talent to work your way through this GT traffic, and it looks like we've got a drive-through penalty there for the number 17 Manidi car for contact. That's our first race control decision of the race, one of many I'm sure to come.
And still waiting to see if there's anything for the initial GTP start, just being rather messy and uncoordinated. Already seen another drive-through penalty has come through. This one for the Altitude Freem Corvette, which is at the very tail end of the GTD pack. The field stretches onto the Ullman Straight. Just look at that sight. Ducking and weaving, using that draft to try and just speed up a little bit in those prototypes before you slingshot your way past these sports cars. And turn 1 as well is a relatively scary place, I feel, as the prototype sends it up the inside, because a GT car doesn't have the aero performance. It's got lots of mechanical grip, and it's always going to wash out to that exit curb. And Joey, you've got to be very mindful. Prototype versus GT car, knowing the strengths in traffic.
You're spot on. When you're driving the GT car by itself, you know, you can kind of put it wherever you want to on the racetrack. However, when we talk about the performance level that these drivers are at, they're at the absolute edge of performance. So the GT cars are kind of locked into their racing line. They don't have all these extra aerodynamic aids to kind of move around in the middle of the corners. We see the number 121 serving their drive-through penalty down pit lane. So when we talk about the multi-class traffic, GTs, they're just kind of stuck on the racetrack where they are. It's actually the prototype drivers that have to be a little bit more respectful out there and pick and choose those moments while staying nice to everybody else on the playground.
And starting to rack up these penalties as race control continues to flick through the start. Aston Martin Aramco, not the greatest qualifying, not the greatest start, and now add to the misery with a penalty as well. Not yet 20 minutes complete, but I think officially at this point, the leader has cleared the entirety of the GTD field. Chris Lullum is about to do so as well on this Ullman Straight, and so that will mean first cycle through traffic is done and dusted for at least the front of the GTP class. It's still Porsche Coanda from the pair of Redline machines, the BMW M just in front of the normal Team Redline car, but that is a very broken Mag Performance Ferrari crabbing its way through the double left-handers before Le Mans, Reese.
Yeah, and it looks like that was contact at the tower turn with another GT car. It was Rodrigo Mies in the fiercely forward silver Porsche that tried to pull a move on him and made contact. So unfortunate there for Mark Calver, who was at the wheel of that Ferrari. Managed to survive most of the GT traffic, ended up getting put into the wall by another member of his own class.
His first outing of the season, not going the way he wanted, as here comes Alexander Spetz, now only a second behind Luke McEwen, so done a good job through traffic to keep himself close to the second of the Redline machines. Max Muir is there as well, sandwiched between those two Coanda Corvettes, now having to wait, build the speed up, and now here comes the hybrid kicking into action and running you down into turn 10. Here's a look at the replay, Joey. Pick it apart for us.
Yeah, so watch this yellow and black Porsche. He's going to get down to the inside of tower turn, this next right-hander coming up. I'm not sure if he gets completely up to the door. He presents the car. The Ferrari closes the door at apex, and unfortunately, front left to right rear contact. And you can actually see the damage on the back end of that Ferrari.
Yep, you can see the car just does not want to settle either. So dangerous to limp it home as well, but does a decent job. Now our GTPs can focus once again on just setting themselves the task of hitting their marks, and once they've got through the last little bits of traffic, just the pair of Coanda Corvettes for this fight for 8th position, just the fight between the two of them, and with the defending race winner and defending champions Williams Sim Racing Chilblas just tucked in behind them for the time being. It's Grid and Go versus Solpec Precision, Jesse Tekela versus Jordan Johnson. And again, remember, Jordan Johnson, a great start to this race, plus 7 positions. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the series, schedule, point standings, head on to iRacing.com/IMSA-Esports today and learn more about the qualifying process as well. Public qualifiers were hosted via iRacing Time Attacks, where the majority of the field was able to earn their way into the series. A couple of the teams also won VCO Grand Slam broadcast splits and were able to make their way into this IMSA Esports Global Championship by winning an iRacing special event. Back in the GTD field, we're on board with the Frenchman Johan Haar. Through Reese, it's always great when people give you information. Johan yesterday told me probably 28 laps on fuel in this opening stint, maybe 29 and 30 for the rest of this race.
Very good information, and well, he'll be racing as hard as he can for the prize money here. A total prize pool of $25,000 spread across our two classes, as you can see there, from 1st to 10th, all getting awarded at the end of the season. And you know, I think it really does help that Johan was so open about the potential strategy for this Apex Racing Team Mustang, formerly associated with Mercedes, switching to the Ford for this particular season. Yeah, they're one of the teams that we always see consistently in the top 10 and fighting for race wins in all sorts of global esports championships. They have that experience, they have that carrot dangling in front of them of that prize money, and they're going to be pushing as hard as they can going forward here. The Apex Racing Team car sitting, I believe, just outside the top 10 in GTD.
And for Johan in particular as well, racing in the Apex Racing Team machine, when they were a Mercedes back in 2023, they won in GTD. It was Luke McEwen and Alejandro Sanchez, two drivers no longer with the team, that won the race for them as what was then known as the Mercedes AMG Team Apex Racing Team. Some fight still brewing in the GTP class. Dominic Hoffman in the BMW M BS Plus Competition 89. About 3 seconds adrift of the top 5 in front of him, as he stares rather expressionlessly into the camera in front of him. I mean, Joey, we often say that sim racers are calm behind the wheel. This is taking it to another level.
Yeah, just completely zoned out with the monitor directly in front of him. And when we talk about real racing car drivers, the lower you can keep your heart rate, usually that means your brain is switched on a little bit more, right? The higher your heart rate, the more your body is working in terms of that exercise. And so, yeah, the more you can just kind of not zone out per se, but have that nice calm heart rate, be comfortable inside the race car, be comfortable inside the sim rig. That's usually when the smartest decisions happen. And it's also, if you're comfortable, you're going to go fast out there. You're going to limit the mistakes.
I'm going to listen in at the end of the almond straight, because I'm 100% confident at this point that there's a little bit of lift and coast going on right now. And I know in the real world they talk virtual energy. We're going to keep it simple. We're going to talk fuel. Let's listen in here. What does Hoffman do? Reese, that's a big lift and coast.
That certainly is, and you know, with no traffic in sight either. So that tells me that the drivers competing in and around that sort of mid-top 10, they're doing their best to extend that fuel stint. You know, that's going to certainly open up the opportunity, right, to play a bit more with your strategy going forward. So the earlier you can get fuel save going, the better off you're going to be later on.
And you were talking about that fuel save. Yes, he was off the throttle, but kind of to Reese's point is that, look, he's the front of that train as we get more penalties. Contact with the number 107 is going to bring the 123 WSR Esports down for a drive-through penalty. But when we were talking about Hoffman kind of pushing the air at the front of the train, you can't lift and coast as much. If you're following in the slipstream, you can definitely save a little bit more fuel.
Lights flash there from the EMM Porsche. Let's take a look at all the different setups that we see here in the IMSA Esports Global Championship. There's obviously a couple of drivers in virtual reality. You see the different seating positions as well. I think that's a little bit always interesting to me. There's some drivers that have very bright screens as well, very distracting. Although I say that, anyone who is a veteran viewer of the iRacing Esports Championship, including the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, will be aware of just how dark Bobby Zelensky likes to keep his room, to the point where it seems like the sun is shining with all solar power directly into his eyeballs. But whatever works for you is what works. That's what makes sim racing so unique. The fact that you can build a rig around you. I mean, theoretically, if you wanted to, Joey, you could get a chassis from one of the GTP manufacturers and build a sim around it. Although that's what the manufacturers do for their really fancy sims.
That's exactly what they do, is just essentially have that carbon chassis and either with screens. Most of the time it's on screens, and also have some motion with the simulator as well. But here in, call it the global esports world, I think when we're talking the tippy top, it's going to be triple monitors or that virtual reality. I really liked the virtual reality from the training aspect. The best way I can relate to it is it's literally like putting the helmet on top of your head and you're transported inside that race car as we get more drive-through penalties here on the racetrack. This one for the number 112. However, virtual reality can have its drawbacks as well. The triple monitor is always a classic choice, especially for those top-tier esports.
In endurance racing, it can get a bit sweaty in virtual reality, both literally and also metaphorically, describing the action out on track. Once that fiercely forward car gets its penalty, by the way, that will promote Team Redline up another position as they slowly creep their way 10 points at a time back up through the points contention. We'll keep our eye on them. Scuderia Ferrari HB Esports team, well, Daniel Lafuente fought like a lion on the opening lap. Hasn't really been able to close back that 2-second deficit that built up to the cars in front of him. Still looking a little bit rearwards at the chasing Nicholas Laubish in that fiercely forward Lamborghini that had an eventful opening lap of the race, Reese, if you don't remember, at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Tangled up at turn 3, coming over the crest of the hill, and then also contacted turn 10, for which they got penalized quite substantially.
Yeah, indeed. Road Atlanta was certainly a rough introduction to the season for many drivers, and this Ferrari were riding on board with grabbing a penalty themselves at Road Atlanta and having a very rough race besides. So we're going to certainly see some redemption from them this round. At the very least, they will attempt to do that. One F1 team in Ferrari, Scuderia Ferrari, the second being Aston Martin Aramco. This is a car car that's already had a bit of a tough start to the race. Lassebach still at the wheel of the 109, but certainly has had its fair share of adventures so far, Arjuna.
Oh, said the very least, I think, there. Yeah, again, Lassebach and Rasmus Christensen qualifying in 31st position. Lassebach has an I rating of 10,435, which is a lot. For those who don't recognize how big I ratings can get, that's your relative measure of skill on the iRacing platform. Everyone starts out at 1,400, and then slowly over time, you build it up, you grind it up. To be over 10,000 is a lot. Let's talk AMD race analysis, though, because we are 30 minutes or so in, and Joey closing on the first of our pit windows. It will open first for the GTPs.
Exactly. So the GTPs hold a little bit less fuel than those GT cars, or I should say burn a little bit more fuel, so that pit stop window is going to be about 45 to 50 minutes. And remember, the minimum drive time. So everybody that's participating as a driver in this race has to do a minimum of 45 minutes. Pit road speed at 45 miles an hour. There's a lot of 45s going on this graphic, but remember last year, that accordion effect going down into pit road, it can definitely get sketchy, especially if we have the prototypes and the GTs kind of stepping on each other. You're hauling the mail coming out of turn number 17, and then you got to woe it down for pit entry.
And I guess the other thing is you need to communicate with the body language of the car to those behind you that you're coming down to pit lane, stick on the right side of the track. And one thing that was mentioned in the driver's briefing is you're not allowed to hit those cones that mark pit entry. You've got to be on the right side of them. So all these little nuances that drivers are aware of. A great shot here. Joey, I think you've been to Sebring. Is turn 10 where they burn the couches? Was that a good shot of where they do all that couch burning?
I would say anywhere in the infield is going to be a riot at Sebring, because it's not just the parties at turn number 7, the parties at turn number 10, the parties over at Tower Turn, but it's also the vehicles that the fans bring out. I mean, how many modified golf carts? I think I've even seen a school bus with the roof completely cut off the top, and it was just a giant party bus cruising the infield.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, yes, literally, there are people that bring couches to the race for the express purpose of sitting on them for the race and then burning them at the very end. Word in my ear, by the way, from our producer Drew, was turn 7 is where they burn the couches. So I'm guessing that's on the inside. If you go to the outside of turn 7, you go from not luxury to luxury to the Sebring Hotel, Sebring 7, sit in the pool, watch the race. Doesn't get much different than that. Let's focus on the race in GTD momentarily, because Coanda, with a fuel advantage, we think in this Corvette race, have a 2.5 second advantage right now. It's Tristan Iglesias that leads from fellow Spaniard Alejandro Sanchez, and they are just running almost in synchrony right now.
Yeah, this is perfect formation flying from the Coanda Esports cars. They currently enjoy about a 3-second advantage over the rest of the GT field, and as we've mentioned, the Corvette is treating them very well in terms of fuel usage. It is certainly a bit of a sipper of fuel, is the Corvette C8, or so we are led to believe. Speaking of Corvettes, into the pits comes the Altitude Freem Esports mechanical black flag given by Race Control.
Yeah, well, this is a car that I did notice had lost its rear wing slightly earlier in the race, and there's been a couple of moments where it's been unstable, and so Race Control has asked for that car to come and get the damage repaired. And, well, their race wasn't looking to be very promising anyway. Better for the safety of everybody to avoid any further drama. They sit in pit lane, joining Mag Performance in that Ferrari. Remember, we saw them crab walking earlier on. Well, 13 minutes and counting of repairs. No signs of heading back out onto track anytime soon. Behind the stone-faced Dominic Hoffman, things are starting to intensify a little bit. Like Rabier, Jesse Tekla, we were watching them fight. Let's jump on board, though. Danny Chivichabo struggling a little bit with the balance down at turn 10. But in the free revving Acura, an engine initially designed to go into an Indy car, it's one of the great things about this GTP class. The fact that, Joey, you have so many different looks, the cars are designed slightly differently, the engine designed slightly differently. Speaking of race control, more penalties. This one is for Winward with Moradness. That's a little bit of drama there.
Yeah, that one's, I'm sure, going to be talked about behind the scenes a little bit between those two cars. The 148 Winward, of course, getting that drive-through penalty, and so that'll be pretty interesting. Both of them driving those Mercedes GT3 cars out there. But we got to remember, we're not even 40 minutes into this one. We haven't even hit the first pit window. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more drama to come, not just the drive-through penalties, but, I mean, looking back at Road Atlanta, it really wasn't until halfway through the race where we saw some serious drama with our overall leader.
Yeah, let's talk about that in a moment. Before that, let's focus on our Michelin wildcard. Daniel Morad paired up with Nathan Olsen. Morad, of course, a two-time Rolex 24 winner, 2017 and in 2024 in the GTD class. He would go on to achieve success. He's paired up with one of his teammates, of course. Daniel has built this Moradness M squad around his, not just business, but in fact around the community that's grown around it as well. He put about 12 of them into a Mercedes GT4 car last year. There's a great video about that, I think, on the iRacing channels. If you want to learn more about Moradness, there's the link on your screen. Oh, that's perfect product placement, isn't it, Reese?
Certainly is. Certainly jump in on that. Yeah, it's really good to see that we've been able to get these wildcard entries going this season and continue to bridge that gap between sim racing and real racing. It's certainly great to see. Daniel Morad has been a long-time supporter of sim racing, very active in the streaming world as well, and to have him here is certainly a great pleasure. Moving back up though, looks like this Scuderia Ferrari Esports machine is coming under yet more pressure from Niklas Laubisch, who's maintaining that gap in the fiercely forward Lamborghini. Johan Harth not too far behind either, and we have the Turner BMW of Oskari Rinne in close pursuit as well.
That car got tangled up, the BS Plus Turner machine, with a bit of contact with lap traffic at the end of the first round, which effectively has dropped them out of championship contention. And go back to what Joey was talking about slightly earlier with the championship implications that we reached about midway through that first round, when Porsche Coanda came out of pit lane on cold tires, tried to defend slightly from the Crown Strike Acura that was fully up to speed, low fuel, warm tires, but getting ready to make a pit stop. Bit of contact through the S's, and Joey ultimately cost the 91 team a chance of the victory. And so they're a team right now that surely, in my mind, has talked pre-race about risk mitigation and not putting themselves in bad situations.
100%. When we were watching it, it might have been a little bit puzzling to say, you know, why did you try to cover off the inside, or why did you try to force it down the inside? And when you look back on it, when you armchair quarterback the thing, you can go back and realize, yeah, it was maybe a little bit aggressive, but at the moment there, you had to be able to do it.
So as we continue to watch the cars run down the Almond Straight, we will dive our way back through some of those incidents. We talked about the penalty. Oh, it's surely contact there through Sunset Bend. Almost Cadillac on Porsche contact as Grid and Go very slow down at the apex of the corner. They just about get through safely, but yes. So Daniel Morad has raced on occasion for Winward in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge and in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. It's Winward Esports that looks to the inside, and a little bit of contact between the two of them, Joey.
And I think that one's pretty cut and dry from a race control perspective, right? You had one car trying to force it up the inside, and he just wasn't there in terms of that track position. So I'm not going to call out any drama on that one. That was a pretty straightforward incident, and sounds like race control behind the scenes has a firm grip on things.
Well, we are, 35 minutes into this race, 20 laps complete, and we have just seen our first takers onto pit lane. It's a bit of a short call there from Grid and Go's number 7, the Coucher 92 team, and Scheja in the 90, alongside a Casey Kerwin as well, actually. So we have seen a couple of teams maybe spot some traffic in front of them and elect not to go to the end of the fuel capacity. So Reese, this is clearly an intentional call from those teams to try something different.
Yeah, that's an interesting call as well. Totally understand why they've done it. You know, when you're getting near to the end of your fuel tank and you start seeing traffic ahead of you, you're thinking, is it worth it me staying out? Is the time I'm going to lose in traffic greater than the time I would lose by pitting early? And, you know, if the numbers stack up right, you go straight into the pits. You just got to hope that the traffic will keep on your side towards the end of the race. They will have to run a little bit longer in the next stint, I think, to compensate for that. The GTPs, of course, as you mentioned, a lot shorter on those fuel stints than the GTs. They will have to visit the pits a few times in this one.
And I think there may be a bit more urgency at this stage to make a move late in the stint, because I think you want to be in front of any cars coming into pit lane. You don't want to be behind someone and then checking up aggressively. As I think Joey had mentioned slightly earlier, the pit entry here is going to be precarious. And then there's pit exit, which merges cars on cold tires directly on to the racing line. So keep an eye out for that as well when we head into probably the GTD pit cycle, with 33 of those cars, let's not forget, which have got to finish up their pit window. I think Ivan Perez did have a slight slip up on cold tires as well. And Joey, we cannot forget just how significant this tire update has been, both for GTD and GTP, but more significantly for the prototypes.
Absolutely, and when we talk about that update, of course, the cars are driving more realistic than they ever have. We hear all of those comments about, oh, this tire is great. However, I think the one remark that a lot of people have is, oh my gosh, the tire warm-up phase is a lot more than what we're used to. And yes, folks, that is exactly what it's like in real life. It takes several laps to get not only the temperatures up to where they need to be, but also those pressures inside the tires. So it's a very realistic tire model out here. iRacing is always improving it. And right now, these GTPs are kind of putting it on full display. Look at how close they can race each other. The aerodynamics definitely can affect the cars. However, I think everybody is happy.
Virtus Pro at the front of this queue. Oh, has to open the door and allow the Acura for Kraussteig to slip on through. Here's Kevin Ellis Jr. And a lot of iRacing esports fans will know this name. Haven't seen much of him in the last couple of years, been racing off in R1. However, back on iRacing and paired up with one of the world's best. There's no ifs or buts about it. Dara McCormack. In a GT3 car, doesn't matter what sim you put him on, he will find a way to go fast. And after they got a penalty for misregistering in the opening round of the championship, they have a chance to show some speed. You find themselves now around 7 seconds off the lead. Bit of pressure building from the Additus Racing by World Sim Racing Mercedes, the EMM Lamborghini, and then the PGZ 119 BMW M4 GT3 car. Now, this is a driver that's matured quite a lot, and a driver that we've seen mature, Reese. He's now got a kid, which I think any parent will tell you that is a maturing day when you wake up, first day back from the hospital, and you realize you have a baby now, a part of your world, and he has just taken so much motivation from that.
Yeah, indeed. It's awesome to see that all throughout the sim racing community. You know, I've been around this community since 2008, and so I've had the pleasure of watching multiple drivers that I used to race against, commentating on in my early days doing this, growing up, having children, starting families, changing lives, changing jobs. You know, I think sim racing has been around long enough at this point that we have a lot of stories to tell, not just on the results side, but on the personal side as well. We got to remember this is still a very human pursuit.
And the Apex Racing team, which he used to be a part of, was, you know, so much a part of that human connection that he has built with the sim racing community. Actually lived, of course, at the Apex Racing team facility in Corby in the UK for a couple of years, but still, of course, bringing a lot of speed even with that slightly new team behind him. On board with Jaden Munoz momentarily in the Williams Sim Racing Chill Blast car. This car won last year, it won the year before that as well. However, in 2023, one driver slightly different in the lineup. Jaden Munoz is looking to try and go 2 wins in a row here at Faro is looking to try and make it 3 wins in a row here. And Joey, we've been looking at some of the different sim setups from the drivers. Look at the way that he's kind of set up in the seat as well. A lot of movement there as he rotates the car through the hairpin.
He's chicken winging it. Look at those elbows come up way out when he's turning the wheel, and he's definitely leaning into these corners as well. So this is a right-hander, turn number 10. Look at that left arm really power through that corner. It's something else to consider too. A lot of these top-tier drivers in the sim, they've got that force feedback cranked pretty good, and that kind of translates all of that detail from the track directly into that force feedback. So that's one of these reasons why these drivers kind of sometimes have those high elbows, using the big muscles.
I felt sometimes like, as someone who liked strong force feedback as well, I needed seat belts in my sim rig, and there are some people that actually sell not just seat belts but tensioners that will tighten the belts based on what's happening in the sim. So all these unique ways of adding just more tactile sensations into the sim as we have crossed 2 hours left to go in this AMD 240. 40 minutes complete. We should start to see a few more of the GTPs trickle on in and join Grid and Go's number 7, the Channel 199 Cadillac, Culture Team in their Acura, and Sheza as well, in making the first pit stops of the race in this prototype class. Defending race winners now, 21 seconds behind Elvis Rankin after just 40 minutes. That is a huge gap. Meanwhile, back with the GTDs, Ellis Jr. is starting to feel the pressure, I feel here, Reese. Kadlecic looking very, very strong, and he's looked very quick across of all the different cars he competes in here in iRacing.
Yes, the Mercedes certainly a good machine to pilot around Sebring. I always was a fan of the Mercedes when I dipped my toes into GT3 competition. Nice, stable platform. The Lamborghini trailing them, on the other hand, a little bit snappier at times, but you can certainly get some fantastic speed out of it. Let's see then what the runner's like towards the hairpin. I saw Raphael Renhofer, who's driving that Lamborghini for IMSA Esports, looking a little aggressive into turn 1. And he's really drawing up on the way into the corners, but the front engine rear-wheel drive layout of the Mercedes, I think, really helps with traction on the exits of corners. The Lamborghini tends to dart a bit more to the inside, and the Mercedes, on the other hand, stable and planted on the exits.
Here we come through onto the onto the Ulmer straightaway as we take a look at Loic Rabier, who has taken one of the best moments of 2025, the infamous bird, as Tommy Milner went for number 1 at the Rolex 24 and put it up in full center stage behind him. And of course, let's not forget that moment replicated recently as Danny Young-Kadea also threw the bird out the window to the same driver as well. Joey, that's the best part. Augusto Farfus in the BMW on both occasions.
100%. He is certainly making himself well known in those post-race debriefs on the Corvette team out there. And you know, here in iRacing, we can't physically put the arm out the window, so I don't think we're going to actually see any of that today. But one thing that I will kind of relate to that it does have to do with this series is that, remember, you race with these same competitors week in and week out. So if you're driving a GT car and you see these prototypes come up and you're constantly closing the door, well, guess what? Those prototype drivers remember exactly how you race them. Not only do you have a 2-hour, 40-minute race here at Sebring, we got to go into the future at Daytona when we've got everybody back onto the track again. Trust me, racing car drivers remember exactly how they make those passes and who is nice out there on the racetrack.
And so I've had one of those moments before, Joey. I did a 4-hour race at Barcelona with the LMP1, LMP2, and GTE cars in one of what was a pretty competitive iRacing league at the time with all the good drivers. There was a moment where all 3 classes were overlapping in the final sector at Barcelona. Everyone knows that's awkward, it's clumsy. And Patrick Wolf centered around my outside. I was in the LMP2, he was in the LMP1, and I said on my stream, on Twitch, if he does that again, I'm going to crash into him. We finished the race, 10 minutes go by, and I get a message from Paddy. What was that you said? I was never going to crash into him. Paddy knew I meant it as a joke, but boy, did we get heated behind the wheel. on to the 26th lap of the race for the prototypes, by the way, so we surely must be getting a lap or two away from seeing them dive down on towards the pit lane, I would assume, but it's now 3.6 seconds at the very front of the field. And I've got to say, Elvis Rankin doing a great job right now here, putting things in his control and not putting a foot wrong, Reese.
Yeah, still holding on to that lead by 3.7 seconds and actually somewhat extending that lead through that first run through the traffic. It's been a very impressive performance from Coanda number 91. Once again, you know, shades of their early race performance last round at Road Atlanta. And I think for these drivers behind them, it's just going to be a matter of how close can we get. I think actually passing them for position is not in anyone's minds right now. They're just dominant up the front. That fourth place battle in GTD still raging on for the meantime, starting to get a little bit of prototype action behind, and we'll see the Cadillac round these guys up, going to be staying behind through this twisty section. I think I alluded to this at Road Atlanta, you know, where you want to give up time in a GTP, where it's worth it to just sit behind the GTDs. Look at what the Cadillac just did there on the bottom of the screen. He waited for the exit of turn 5. He wasn't trying to dive up the inside and that's not how to exit a corner and get it done on the straight. That's where you'll get it done.
And I was wondering when they were going to come in. It's 27 laps for your race leader as he hits his marks in pit lane, and Elvis Rankin driving a very, very comfortable first stint. Slightly, though, shorter than what we see from the rest of the field. 5 cars already streaked by the start-finish line. Make that 6 without coming down onto pit lane. The next car down is the Apex Racing Cadillac from 13th position, Joey. So maybe on inclination, the Porsche leading, building its gap, but burning some fuel too.
Yeah, that's right, about 47, 48 minutes or so in terms of our overall leader, and it's kind of opened the floodgates. What I am most curious about, remember how we were touching on those alternate strategies with the earlier stoppers with those prototypes? I think my biggest question mark is every single one of those early stoppers took a different amount of fuel, from 21 seconds all the way up to 33 seconds of fuel. So not only did they stop early, but they're also playing a different game in those early stops.
I love when we do get a bit of strategy differences. The fun thing with GTD, but we're not into their pit stop window yet technically, but because they can go about an hour on fuel, 28 to 30 laps or so, they don't need 2 full pit stops. And so really they are playing a lot of games. How much fuel do we start the car with? How much fuel do we put in at the first stint? How much fuel do we need to leave for the last stint? And how close do we want to cut it in the GTD class, with how many laps the GTPs are going to do and then pass them by as well? There are all these different variables in what is a busy weekend in the world of iRacing. Yesterday, I was covering the iRacing Suzuka 1000. That was a lap limited race. A lot easier to figure out your strategy. Here comes Team Redline though. Both the BMW M entry with Silly Lolly and Luke McEwen behind him. And I get the feeling, although Drago will extend to what is now a 28th lap of the run, the majority of the field race is going to be exiting down to pit lane.
Yes, and how are they going to manage the inevitable blend into the GT traffic as well? I mean, there's a bit more space now in the GTD field, but we're going to have all these prototypes exiting back onto the racetrack, potentially with GT cars trying their best to stay narrow on the exit of turn 1. You know, we talked about pit exit briefly at the top of the show. The fact that it narrows up so much on the exit. There we go, here's the blend. This is what we're talking about. The Coanda 91 here, making his way through, and he will just clear the red line BMW. So the gap for the effective race lead, it seems, has been brought down.
Let's wait for cold tires to play its part, though. They were both on pit lane for the same exact time, 50.4 seconds. About 2 laps, and we'll get the sense of if it's going to open back up to around 4 seconds or so. Already 1.5 seconds as back up to speed. Now, where is the likes of Casey Kerwin? Because there's almost 10 laps into his run now. He's only in 15th, so really this is still a long play for him to try and gain some more track position on the back straight, running down to the final corner. It's the race leading Drago Racing BMW. We'll see BMW M Team BS competition into pit lane, as well as the Williams Sim Racing Chill Blast cars. So an extra lap, which here at Sebring could prove to be important. Make that 2 extra laps here, Joey.
Yeah, +2 for this Drago racing machine. And when I think of extending the stint, it's not necessarily going to move you forward in terms of that track position. However, it can just potentially open up more doors later on in the race. It doesn't kind of shoehorn you into that one specific strategy. And I know that you were just mentioning Casey Kerwin back there in the number 95. I will say that his time stopped on pit road is pretty equal to all of these, call it lead GTP cars. So he's actually going to cycle out right behind that number 60 of the Solpec Precision Racing machine. Remember how much we've talked about Jordan Johnson? Well, now he's got to deal with Casey Kerwin.
Yeah, I'm wondering, we're still owed pit stops from BMW, so they do seem to have a bit of a fuel advantage. Maniti's number 17 is into pit lane now. They did have a drive-through earlier in the race, of course, as well, so a little bit further down the running order, but keep an eye maybe on Team Redline later in the race if they do have a bit more of a fuel advantage to dip into, maybe not saving as much fuel as Alexander Spetz, Dominic Hoffman. We were talking earlier about Kevin Ellis Jr. and his transition through the world of sim racing. Alexander Spetz has transitioned from karting, doing some sim racing as well, to just finishing his first season in the Renault Clio Cup Bohemia. He was the 3rd best junior driver, but for somebody that in the world of iRacing has built a reputation around their excellence and expertise in piloting a prototype car, I'm not sure a Renault Clio Cup front-wheel drive touring car is necessarily the same sort of thing, Reese.
No, it certainly isn't. I mean, a car is a car is a car. As he comes into pit lane, just avoids getting into those cones there, and it looks like Dominic Hoffman is going to follow him in there. You know, a lot of the big prototype drivers in the real world of sports car racing started out in touring cars. I mean, I think back to Frank Biela, for example. You know, he first started making headlines in super touring, and then a few years later he was winning at Le Mans in the Audi R8. So I think there's some kind of transition you can make between those disciplines.
Man, good shout. Frank Biela, also a team owner in the IMSA Esports Global Championship inaugural campaign, as we had the Biela Racing Euronics team. But as we close on 1 hour complete here in the AMD 240, GTP pit stops officially now in the books. Let's take a step aside, closing in on pit stops for the GTDs. We'll be right back here on the IMSA channels on the iRacing Esports Network with round 2 of the 2025 IMSA Esports Global Championship.
Cause you woke up in the morning with initiative to move, so I make it harder. Don't hold back. Galvanize.
Trajectory and balance look good. Confirmed to go for orbit.
Every day, Michelin innovates to move the world forward on the road and far beyond. Michelin, motion for life.
Today's coverage of the IMSA Esports Global Championship is brought to you by AMD. The AMD Ryzen 9 9950X 3D processors with second AMD Gen 3D V-Cache technology is now available for a massive gaming performance boost. And by Michelin, the official tire of IMSA. Michelin is the exclusive tire provider for all classes of the WeatherTech Championship, Michelin Pilot Challenge, and VP Racing Sports Car Challenge Series. and by VCO. Discover the format that never sleeps. Across 14th and 15th of Feb, the world's best take on 24 races in 24 hours, 45-minute sprints at 5 tracks in 5 cars, with constant driver rotations turning strategy into a sport of its own. Every moment matters. Apply to be part of this enduro sprint at vco-infinity.com. And by iRacing Arcade. Wishlist iRacing Arcade today. Coming December 2nd on Steam and consoles in early 2026. This is the AMD 240, the second round of the IMSA Esports Global Championship. Arjuna Kankipati in the iRacing broadcast booth alongside the ever wonderful Reese Gardner and Joey Atterbury. Don't forget, iRacing Black Friday sale is underway. Head on to the website now. New memberships 50% off, 25% all early renewals and membership renewals. GTD pit window has officially opened, and race, it's the Mercedes that dive in first. Virtus Pro leading in the pack.
Yes, indeed. So let's keep our eyes peeled to see what kind of response there is from the Coanda Esports Corvettes, who continue to run 1 and 2 at the front of this field. The Door Esports Mustang making its way in as well. But once again, those Coanda Corvettes, they do seem to be a little leaner on their fuel usage. They'll be going out an extra lap compared to just about everybody else.
And Joey, it's a 2-second gap between the teammates now. Tristan Iglesias looking good after AO Racing by Coanda. Iglesias and Johnny won here last year in the 2024 IMSA Esports Global Championship.
Here is the shots of those leaders. Of course, the 118 leading the 181, nearly identical paint schemes on these Corvettes. And if we kind of draw our time machine back a couple weeks, I think they went +2 at Road Atlanta in terms of that fuel advantage. However, Sebring, completely different style of racetrack than Road Atlanta. I'm going to be curious if they only go +1 or if they can stretch it that second lap as well.
Bit of a fight here. Drago Racing in GTP were one of just a handful of teams that have done a full service in the first pit stop sequence, and that's dropped them into the clutches of some cars lighter on fuel and maybe slightly out of position relative to their counterparts. Drago once up in 3rd, now down in 9th, and feeling the heat from Marcus Hamilton in the CrowdStrike Racing Acura behind them. Then Casey Kerwin slowly climbing his way through the field. As here come the leaders down into pit lane. It's not quite a 2-lap advantage, but bringing in the Marla Racing BMW with them as well. Reese, this is looking very, very good, not just for Coanda, but for that Marla Racing crew powered by BS Plus competition.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see that BMW as close as it was. I think GTP traffic might have made things a little more difficult for the Coanda duo. That the BMW's good sight closer than I expected it to be. Well, we'll keep an eye on the pit stop times as they come to us, and we'll keep an eye on our wildcard entry here, the Moradness M Squad entry in the Mercedes, whether or not we see driver changes in this first pit stop as well, as we find our way through to Sunset Bend. A little bit tight on the way through. Looks like the Coanda Corvettes have completed their stop, and they will still come out in the lead. Some pretty good pit stops from the both of them. Round about 26 seconds apiece with Iglesias and Sanchez in the car.
Everyone kind of going for that slightly short fill, about 6 seconds shorter. Oh, that pit merge is dangerous. That's a car that is a lap down. That is not for position. It's the World Sim Racing Mercedes that puts itself between the pair of Corvettes. Grid and Go Cadillac GTP now trying to get out of this situation, use that hybrid to drive it down to turn 7. Not ideal for Sanchez, who had slightly closed, about a second shorter in the box itself. So trying to close up in the pit lane, not quite working out as race control continues to be busy. It's Veloce Thrustmaster in that black and blue livery that we highlighted last week on our Countdown to Green show. Contact with the 133 has seen it being issued with a penalty. So that would be the Simufy Porsche and Gabby Montoro at the wheel right now. But officially, Joey, 1 hour complete, 1 hour and 40 minutes left to go.
And I'm looking down through my timing and scoring screen. Knock on wood, I think that we've got everybody done with their first pit stop cycle. That includes the early stoppers for the prototypes, the alternate strategies for the GT cars, and it was only that +1 lap advantage that those Coanda Esports machines had on the rest of the field, and really not even that, because we saw the BMW follow them into pit lane. I think I saw one of the Lamborghinis down there as well, and this is that fight for 11th in GTP. Remember how Casey Kerwin came in early? He's actually right smack in the middle of his fuel stint. He's dealing with Jordan Johnson right now. That's that bright green number 60 he's battling with.
And what a move from Johnson down there at turn 16 at Le Mans corner. Slice up the inside behind them. Watch here as Williams Gaming Club defensive. Moreno Sorica trying to fend off the advances of Maxime Briand, the rock and rolling Frenchman who made some spectacular moves here around the outside of turn 1 last year. He's going to have to go either side of the traffic. They'll go either side of the Mahler BMW. Does the Cadillac get alongside into turn 1? I think Briand's got alongside. Momentum swept around the outside as digging into the gravel goes the right side tires for the Moreno Sorica driven purple machine. Oh, some great racing shown here as the 963 squeezes the Cadillac as it climbs off the curb, out of Big Bend, under the bridge. Traffic in front of them, departing the scene. Sorica's on the inside on the run to the hairpin race.
This is fantastic racing between these two cars. They are giving each other just enough space and not an inch more. Slight contact in the braking zone, and Moreno Sorica will defend the position into the hairpin, but it looks like Maxime Briand is having a whale of a time on power. The Cadillac, naturally aspirated, I believe the only GTP to be so, and it certainly uses all that power and low-end torque effectively. Not going to be able to make his way past here. They've come up on GT traffic at the worst possible point on the lap here, coming up to Tower Turn, past Andrew Caron in that WSR Mercedes that we were looking at just a few moments ago. And there's our GTD leader that they've just made their way past there. Barely enough space around the outside. That particular point of the circuit, that sort of fast double left kink, is one of the most hair-raising points on the lap for me. It's always 50-50 whether I'm going to get through there cleanly.
Especially with traffic, if you end up 3 wide. We don't have LMP2s with us today, but when we return to Sebring for the second of the VCO Grand Slams in March, the 12 hours of Sebring, it's a point at which we often do see a fair share of drama. I think you're right, Reese, of the cars that we have in this competition, the Cadillac is the only naturally aspirated one. I think the Valkyrie technically is naturally aspirated, we just don't have it, so we're not going to include it as much as it maybe would tug at the heartstrings of many with its glorious 6.5-liter V12.
Oh, gimme.
Give me indeed.
I mean, it's Christmas time coming up, right? Can we ask?
Mr. iRacing, please and thank you. Unfortunately, for those that were following the Daytona test, they had electrical issues on the first day of the test and didn't actually get to run at all, an issue they hadn't encountered in a full year of competition across the World Endurance Championship and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. So hoping that we see them at Daytona and really showing what they can do. What a spectacular Petit Le Mans that they had, and really showing the evolution, and again, add it to the wish list. 4.5 seconds at the front of the GTP field, 1.5 seconds at the front of the GTD field, but it's Coanda in control if you're joining us now. Red line on the chase in GTP, excuse me. Mahler Racing Team, Additus Racing on the chase in GTD, and the big loser in the pit stop sequence, Kevin Ellis Jr. here, Reese. Now 6 seconds behind the group of cars he was holding at bay just before the pit stops.
Yeah, indeed. Doesn't look like there's been much of a good time for Kevin Ellis there recently. On board here with Daniel Morad, who has now taken over the wild card entry in the Mercedes. These are going to be some of his first laps out here on the circuit. Fortunately, the GT3s, they use tyre warmers. The GTPs do not. So while you do still have to deal with a warm-up period in these cars, and it's a little bit more slippery out of the pits, you do still have to get it up to speed. Let's listen in for a few moments here and see how Daniel Morad struts his way around Sebring.
Oh, big wiggle as the steering snaps on Morad heading out of turn 10. You could see a little bit of movement there as Daniel Morad in that motion rig. He was mentioning to me at Sim Racing Expo a couple of weeks ago, had the chance to chat and actually commentate on him in a race there, that he was going to build a whole new sim rig. Now, if he's been able to do it in 2 or 3 weeks, who knows? Sim rig with motion sounds like a lengthy endeavor, but here in our Michelin wildcard entry, sounds like he'll be back on the grid at least at Daytona next year and working through his plans for the rest of 2026. Checking out the Williams Gaming Club machine, still behind Casey Kerwin. It's the fight for 12th position. Probably going to see Casey down in pit lane, I would think, in the next 8 laps or so for what would be the penultimate pit stop of the race for him. So definitely some alternate strategies. We talked briefly as well about Michelin tires. Poor iRacing tire developers. They've got a new Michelin tire coming in 2026 that they've got to analyze. So not only the Aston Martin Valkyrie needs to be added to the wish list, Reese, but the new Michelin compounded tire too.
Yeah, indeed, and I'm sure that the real-world drivers involved in this competition will be providing iRacing with a lot of valuable feedback as they build that new tyre. It will surely be a great update to these cars. I mean, Joey said it earlier, the leaps and bounds that this tyre model has come in recent years has been fantastic, and I think it's been a really good sweet spot that's been hit here with the tyre as it currently is. But the iRacing devs will be the first to tell you there's always room for improvement.
I'm sure a lot of different iRacers have their own opinions on what those improvements should be. I will leave that be. Just a reminder, iRacing.com/IMSA-Esports. If you want to learn more about the series, everyone in this series qualified into it, either by winning a VCO Grand Slam broadcast split, Daytona 24, Sebring 12, Watkins 6, or Petit Le Mans, or via the iRacing Time Attack qualifiers. Learn more about that process and get yourself ready for 2026. Open to anybody with an iRacing account. You don't need super high iRating, you just need the speed to qualify for this championship. Tell you what, Moreno Sarica getting closer and closer to the back of Casey Kerwin here. It's a relatively warm day in Florida. We mentioned that on occasion. Track temperature at a balmy 47 degrees Celsius, which works out to around 116 Fahrenheit or so. Casey coming towards the end of his stint will be vulnerable, but Joey, he's doing just enough to hold off Sarica, who lunges to the inside and slices his way forward.
And look at the over-under. Casey says, okay, if you're going to charge that fast into the corner, look at the launch I can create coming out of the corner. But I think that Sarica is being held up a little bit. So the fastest lap out of that number 10, a 1:48.8. You compare that to Casey's fastest lap, who's leading this group, a 1:49.3. So there's a good half a second difference in that performance of the fastest lap between these two cars. Now, if you put yourself in Moreno's shoes, there's a couple options. You could be very aggressive and try to get by this car and not have it affect your track position. But Arjuna, I'm going to go to your point. We probably know he's going to be coming down into pit lane. This is the opportunity to fuel save behind that car, too.
Always an easier task to ask a driver to fuel save than to get him to agree to do it sometimes.
And with the car in the rearview mirror, right?
Rear view camera. We got to be specific.
Yeah.
The technology on these cars, it's wild. And I remember having a chat with Dane Cameron's uncle in the San Francisco airport, of all places, about the 40-page manual that he was told to read about how to operate the Porsche 963, all the buttons and all those settings. Got to understand how to maximize the hybrid as well, where to deploy it as well. You know, sometimes you want to use it in short spurts, other times you want to deploy it all in one fell swoop. Those are those intricacies, the ability to proactively tell the car what you think it's going to need to do through the next corner, dial in a little bit more of those anti-roll bars, or whatever the case will be, stay in front of the car rather than behind it. Will Moreno Sarica stay behind for any more length of time? Once again, commits up the inside, and this time a bit more clinically, able to hold the apex, able to hold the position, and moves himself up to 12th, Reese.
Yep, take two, and he nailed it. So he's going to try his best to get a gap over Casey Kerwin now, as all three of them then navigate the Michelin wildcard Moradness M Squad Mercedes. And the Apex Racing Team Cadillac behind these guys, he's been hanging around these last few laps. Maxime Brion at the wheel of the 99 there, and keeping an eye on pit stop times for them. It looks like of this group, that Apex Cadillac has the longest pit stop time of them all. They're going to be one of the last to come in for their second pit stop. And for the moment, I think Casey Kerwin isn't too far away from jumping into the pits himself. Actually, look at the gap that Moreno Sarica has managed to get already. I get the feeling that he was struggling a little bit behind Casey Kerwin, but now he has some clear air. He's jetting away.
And I think Joey was correct. Maybe Casey doing a bit of that fuel saving now and just trying to keep himself in some sort of contention. I got a message from a couple of drivers. I want to call out one in particular because we may not have engine failures, we may not have gearbox failures. You know what we do sometimes have? Headsets that run out of battery. And that's why Johan Hart is no longer in the Apex Racing Ford Mustang and has had to swap over to Luca Kita. And Joey, they're going to swap back to Johan for the final stint of the race.
He's right. I mean, in the real world of racing, there's mechanical failures, there's electrical failures, there's all sorts of stuff that can happen during a race. Well, guess what? Inside the sim rig, we can also have failures. I mean, how often does a USB just kind of fall out of the dongle over there? Batteries running out of the headset. So, yeah, it's not an engine failure. It's not a catastrophic failure that we can see plumes of smoke come out of the back of the car. But trust me, it is just as damaging.
Well, for those that have never watched this, after this race is over, go search 2019 iRacing Spa 24 Max Verstappen. And you'll see Max Verstappen leading the sim race and have his brake pedal fall apart on him. Had to pull aside to the into the gravel by using the wall to slow him down, and Lando Norris got in, I think, to finish the race off. It happens. Technical issues, whether they're mechanically related or not.
I mean, how often do we have issues with the simple devices? Our phone, right? It's the same exact thing here. Anytime you're dealing with technology, you got to wonder if it is actually going to turn on or not.
Yeah, honestly, I've had experiences like that myself. I remember there was one occasion where I was driving an LMP2 in an endurance league at Le Mans, and halfway down the Mulsanne Straight, I noticed, hang on a minute, one of the bolts in the center of my wheel is loose. What's that about? I look up, and there's the Armco. Like, honestly, it's not just, you know, internet and, you know, all the technical computery mumbo jumbo that you have to worry about. Sometimes it is just your physical hardware. It gives out after a long time being used and abused.
Again, we talked about Sebring earlier. There's a reason why they all come here to test. We've got GTP pit stops underway from those cars that came in early. So Jake Dennehan, the Irishman, is going to be the first that cycles his way on through. Keep an eye out for exactly how long he will spend, because not only is he going to do a driver change, John Campbell, the American, jumps in. I would suspect a bit of a full service as Felix Quernbach continues to try and plot his way past in the BS Plus Turner machine. This car, of course, had some success in the real world. This livery ran on a BMW M4 GT4 car in the Michelin Pilot Challenge. Back over to Team PGZ. We're going to take a look at another one of our wonderful sim rigs. Always nice to see. It must be a warm evening, to say the very least, for Leandro Andretti in Switzerland, Joey, because the windows are open, although I've noticed his biggest fan is not supporting him right now.
You know, his biggest fan is just there for the cheering aspect. He's not actually pushing any air right now, but you're right, got the windows open, and you were talking about how sweaty it can get inside virtual reality, right? Well, here's an ultra-wide monitor. Got some nice airflow inside the cockpit over there. Nice and comfortable racing around, and currently sitting just outside the top 20 in that GTD class, making his way around that tower turn here at Sebring. Just a nice, comfy race right now for this number 119 BMW.
I think it's Sean Campbell. If we can pop a look at his webcam potentially, he often has like 5 fans in the background. None of them turned on, but all supporting him is often what we joke about. His biggest fans literally in the room with him. Hour and 24 minutes to go. Jesse Telkala, in the second Grid-N-Go Cadillac, pitting from 6th position. Scuderia Ferrari HP Esports team, still Daniel Lafuente, but now behind Dino Lombardi. Difficult qualifying race for them, 19th, and they are now inside of the top 10.
Yeah, indeed. Looks like the Grid-N-Go Cadillac has switched drivers in the meantime. Peter Zuber taking over. A suspiciously short stint for that car. But yeah, back on the subject of this Ferrari, you know, they've certainly had a rough start to the season, as we've been talking about. You know, it would be nice for them to get a result here at Sebring. Still working their way through. Speaking of working, these Acuras going side by side into turn 3, 4, and 5, but ultimately working themselves out single file. And once again, it looks like a Cadillac at the back of a 3-car fight, looking to take some advantage. More GT traffic ahead of these guys as well, so got to keep that in mind too.
And in the middle of this, in the iRacing liveried car, is Ivan Perez, and we've got to congratulate him on what has been a remarkable journey. First won the iRacing Skip Barber Formula Series. That got him a drive in the real world, and he's just come off a championship weekend, winning the 2025 Skip Barber Racing School Formula Series. And so a true story of what iRacing can do, Joey, from an esports competition to the real world, champion to champion.
It was very cool. I got to meet up with him over at NOLA Motorsports Park earlier this year and actually call one of those Skip Barber races when he was hopping in those Formula 4 based cars out there and really putting a lot of that skill on full display. We always talk about that sim to reality bridge. Well, Ivan Perez here, he is one of those graduates. He's not only here racing in a professional esports championship, but he's also taken all of his skill that he's learned from sim racing and now has applied it to his own career, an open wheel career that he is starting out here. And he actually just got hit from behind by the number 78 Maniti racing car.
It's the big green machine that's getting a bit too Hulk-like right now. Squeeze as the wall juts back in as you run your way to the line. Oh, you saw the look of panic on the face of Ivan Perez, a look of frustration for a moment as well. Bewilderment, able to hold on, lose a bit of ground up to Alex Nogay, making his first appearance of the season in that fiercely forward number 11. But we got away with one there, deep into the corner. Is that going to be another bit of contact as they sweep out through Big Bend? Oh, I think he'll just about get away with it. Has got to now cover the middle of the track, headed up to the hairpin at turn 7. And in the old days, this used to be even scarier. You'd go all the way to the end, deeper into the braking zone with no runoff to speak of. This is a look at the replay. I mean, below the white line, trying to jink back up a little bit. Joey, I see a wry smile on your face.
I mean, it's games. It's games being played on the back straightaway. I think that Ivan did absolutely nothing wrong, and you see on the top of the screen here, he's actually not going to have to deal with that rear view mirror anymore because the competitor just drove off the racetrack in turn number 10. But back to my point, I don't think that Ivan was doing anything wrong down the back straightaway. He wasn't moving in defense to try to block, and once he got to the inside of the racetrack, it was actually the competitor that kind of made the contact. So now Ivan can just focus straight out the windshield.
And so Daniel Luchko in that Maniti Racing 78 getting a little bit too hot under the collar for the time being. I think there was a bit of contact with the Door Esports Ford Mustang that sent him off the road. Channel 199, Casey Kerwin into pit lane, and I think an hour and 20 minutes done. Half the race complete. The only thing to expect now is the American out and his teammate Owen Carroll to jump into the car. Casey's done a decent job, all things considered, but it's time for Owen, who's a bit of prototype specialist compared to Casey, a bit more of a jack of all trades, who will be able to push the car on. Here's a look at the replay. Reese down into turn 10.
Yeah, looks like the Maniti car just blending a little bit into the Dory Sports Mustang, and that's the reason why we saw him make his way off the circuit there. Jonas Rutten at the wheel of the Dory Sports 120 there, and that would have been a bit of a nasty surprise, one of many that the GT competitors can expect here. Well, we check back in with the Drago Racing Aston Martin here that's fighting a little bit further down the field, the 169, classed in 39th place overall. And he's currently involved in the fight with Julian Reimer in the IMSA Esports Porsche up ahead. We're seeing a little bit of lost momentum for the GTP ahead. Perez, I think, still struggling a little bit to maintain some kind of rhythm. It looks like our GTP leader is back in as well. Porsche Coanda number 91. Elvis Rankin out, Charlie Collins in.
And yeah, I was expecting the driver changes, but this is interesting, Joey, because we had the cars come in early in the first stint, but now everyone is somewhat equal again. Casey's just come out of pit lane and everyone else is diving in, so we've equalized after diverting on strategy.
You're telling me. I'm pulling my hair out over here. I'm trying to figure out exactly how all this strategy is going to work out. You know, we've got 32-second stops. We've got 42-second stops. It's kind of all over the place right now, but it has kind of opened up that strategy game where some of the drivers have reversed it. We always think about kind of closing it out with the smallest amount of fuel, the shortest amount of stop at the end. Well, some of these drivers took that short stop at the beginning, and now we're kind of playing the long game all the way through to the very end of this race. But remember, there is so much traffic, you really never know which gamble is going to pay off.
Split-second decisions, and sometimes they pay out, sometimes they don't. Next time out, we don't have those split-second decisions in the same way, given that we are splitting up the classes. GTP will head to the West Coast. GTD head to America's Motorsport Resort. Another pit stop, that time IMSA Esports. Danny Chivichabo hands over to Tamas Simone. Still waiting for the second of the red line cars to come to pit lane. That will probably be another 5 or 6 laps, my assumption is. Same with Max Muir for Solpec Virtual Mindset. For Williams Sim Racing Tour Blast as well. Daniel Lafuente really having to defend right now. And we've talked about GTP strategies, so let's focus on GTD for a second here, Reese. There were some teams that elected to slightly short fill, about 6 seconds shorter, all things considered, whereas teams like Scuderia Ferrari, teams like Virtus Pro, filling up the car a little bit more, it means they will spend a lot less time stationary second time down to pit lane, including their driver change.
Yeah, exactly. And as we see more pit stops for the GTPs, that's the CrowdStrike Racing number 4 coming in, and Marcus Hamilton. Yeah, very good point about you know, the varying pit stop times. Those teams in GTD have given up track position in the short term, but they will gain it all back on that next pit stop. We're only expecting 2 pit stops for the GTDs. You can give up a little bit more early on and make your gains later. Driver change is going to take a flat 30 seconds, no matter what. That's just how it's set in the sim. So if you can somehow get all of your service done in that 30 seconds and get your driver change done and out, that is going to be certainly a profitable conclusion to the race for you. For the moment, they're still focusing on the battles in front and behind. It's a nice little 3-car pack the Scuderia Ferrari car is involved in. I'd say they're under a bit more pressure from behind, though. Nicolas Rubiar in the Drago Racing 168 piling the pressure on there.
Joey, go back. Sorry,
yeah, just real fast, as we watch this GT stuff, I do want to point out 2 outliers in the prototype class. It's that Drago Racing 69 car, as well as I believe it's going to be the BMW M Team BS Plus competition. That's Dominic Hoffman, the number 89. So by my math, they stretch it 2 or 3 laps longer than the rest of the prototype field. Theoretically, they could get by with 1 more stop if they're able to match that first stint performance.
Keep an eye on that. Jaden Munoz hits pit lane, defending race winner, defending champions. Struggling a bit on the back foot as we close on the halfway mark of the season. Still tracking the extended stint from red line. Luke McEwen not handing over to Gustavo Ariel, the Brazilian, just yet. I'll go back to something that Reese had touched on, Joey. Imagine in the real world being told that you don't have to practice driver changes. It's just going to take a flat 30 seconds every time.
You know, that would be wonderful, not having to get suited up, put all on everything, all the Nomex, all the racing stuff, the Hans device, the helmet, the radios, the earbuds, everything, and then you got to jump in and out of a car. You got to know, every time you jump in and out of a car, trust me, you're going to bang your knee on one of those roll bar doors, especially if you're as tall as I am, about 6'1" out here. So, yeah, driver change practice, I would love to throw that one out the window.
As soon as Reese said fix 30 seconds, I was locked in. Imagine not seeing all that driver change practice and all of that good stuff. If you're ever at an IMSA event on the grid walk, which is available to anybody with a general admission ticket, they do a pit stop demo. So not only can you go and see what it's like when the pit crew are getting to work, Michelin Pilot Challenge do 5 lug nuts, the WeatherTech do just the 1, but you can see what a driver change is like as well. What you can't do is listen to this bump start as the Cadillac's going to fire off on electric power. And then, as if by magic, the engine roars into song and off and away it goes, Reese.
God, I love it. You know, when this generation of prototype was first brought to the world, the one thing that struck me was just the way that Cadillac fired up in the mobile phone footage that I saw for the first time. It's like turning the afterburners on a fighter jet. It's incredible.
Well, so the only disappointing thing about the Aston Martin Valkyrie is that it doesn't do the bump start because it doesn't have a hybrid, but we'll excuse it because you get to hear the V12 off the pit lane instead. Yeah, the bump start
makes up for it.
Makes up for it, and then some is how I put it. So, final couple of cars trickling their way into pit lane. Still waiting for Red Lines 34, still waiting. We're going to wait for a long time for Drago Racing and BMW MBS Plus competition to come into pit lane, so don't get any expectations there. But Solpec Precision Mindset, they've just come in, so at CrowdStrike's number 3. Solpec's number 60 has put Aaron Full into the car for the first time this season. He missed the opening round of the championship, and Garrett Berry drove in his place. Meanwhile, off the final corner, these are some drivers who are going to be mindful of some of that traffic, which is just leaving pit lane right now because cold tires with the prototypes. How does this work out? There comes Aaron Full in the Solpec number 60. Going to take it very, very tentative now, and this is against every fiber of a racing car driver's being. The need to not push too aggressively here, Joey. The need to be calm, patient, and let the tires come to you.
Especially in a prototype machine, we think about these prototypes having extreme grip, but it's actually the GT cars in the really slow sections, especially here at turn number 7. The GT cars actually roll a little bit more speed through the apex of the very, very slow mechanical grip, mechanical speed corner. So when you're on the cold tires in the prototype, you merge out right before turn number 3 and you're surrounded by a bunch of GT cars on hot tires, really hustling it around the track. Yes, you have to tiptoe, and in fact, I see a prototype coming back out onto the racetrack there. And speaking of this blend, let's go ahead and watch this Team Redline 34 car. Gustavo Ariel hopping in. He's going to be blending out onto the racetrack, the race with our leader.
It won't be a race, though, because 30 seconds and counting. Ariel still not released. If I'm Team Redline, I don't fully pit, though. And yes, Ariel only stationary for 33.4 seconds. But it's about 4 laps deeper into the race than his teammate in the sister BMW M Team Redline machine. Meanwhile, Charlie Collins, Sir Chollins, as we've nicknamed him in the past, up to speed already. Last lap was a 48.725, even working his way through traffic. And after the disappointment of the opening round of the season, Reese, driver change has been achieved, and Charlie Collins has done a couple more corners, a couple more laps than we got to see from Josh Rogers last time out.
Yeah, my fingers are crossed for them because, honestly, that was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen. Rogers didn't even get to complete a full race lap. You know, cold tires playing a part in that incident, as with this one for Tanguy Bion in the CrowdStrike Racing number 3. Fresh out of the pits, gets on the brakes for turn 10, and the car just refuses to slow down. The GTD cars at least have the option of having an anti-lock braking system. The prototype drivers don't get that same luxury. They just have a traction control system. When you get on the stop pedal, you're probably going to lock up if you're not careful.
And that is a very bumpy braking zone. They're all bumpy, don't get me wrong. Turn 10 is particularly bumpy in my memory from working around the track. Let's listen in as we head back down to that portion. And this time on board with the replay and just see what he was going through. He actually does a decent job of not locking the right front tire, Joey, and going deep instead. So he minimizes the damage long term while compromising his corner, which I guess could be worse.
And the most important thing is don't rip apart that tire, especially on these opening laps. The more you abuse your equipment early on, the less it's going to be there for you when you really want it towards the end of the stint. So I actually want to give props to that driver because, first of all, realized in way too deep, didn't try to keep it on the racetrack, right? That's rule number 1. Don't throw the car away, simply drove it off the exit road, got control of it, drove it through the grass, no damage on the car. Sure, you look back on it, oh, I lost 5 seconds, I lost 7 seconds in terms of that lap. However, you're still out there turning laps.
I want to thank you all for joining us here for the AMD 240 as we look at our AMD race analysis. Whether you're watching on the IMSA YouTube channels or the iRacing Esports Network, we don't take your company for granted. We have one more race next week before break for Thanksgiving, and our championship wraps up on December the 7th. Remember, minimum drive time is 45 minutes, so if there's a team that hasn't swapped around their drivers just yet, they have 25-ish minutes left to get that done before they find themselves flirting with disaster. And next week on November the 23rd, a very different form of racing. No multi-class traffic race for the first time in the IMSA Esports Global Championship. We'll send the GTPs off to Long Beach for 75 minutes, and the GTDs will crown an overall winner as they race around VIR for 75 minutes as well.
Yeah, make sure to tune in for that one in about 7 days' time. It's going to be an interesting one. 2 different tracks for those 2 sub-races we've got going for round 3. And I'd be interested to see how the GTP strategy changes with no GTD cars to think about. Because, you know, we talked about it earlier. The runs through the traffic here are such a prime opportunity to save fuel in a GTP car and extend your stint, maybe play around with this strategy a little bit more towards the end. They're not going to get that when they go to Long Beach. And by the same token, I think the GTDs would very much like a break from having those buzzards around them in their rearview mirrors.
Buzzards is a good description. My phrase that I've always said, GTP stands for going to pass, LMP2 let me past, GTD going to die. Fortunately, we've still got, out of the 53 starters, I'm so happy to be able to say this, we have 52 cars running, and there's only, as I'm counting them, 3 GTD cars that are multiple laps down off the lead. So all things considered, attrition has been low, traffic is still aplenty as we race in this very, very warm Florida sunshine. Still 47 degrees on the track temperature, that's 116 Fahrenheit, and Michelin tires very much helping these drivers to work their way through. Reina Talvar is starting to feel the pressure, and Martin Kadlecic, who's really been on fire in the FIA Formula 4 Esports Global Championship, shifting gears into a tin top and really showing us his speed here, Joey. But doing the right thing right now, saving the fuel, sitting behind and minding his P's and Q's.
That's exactly what he's doing in that Mercedes, chasing that BMW going through turn 10, headed up towards Tower Turn here. And I always love strategy, right? I feel like I'm always kind of beating a dead horse over here, always talking about strategy and kind of the racecraft on the track itself. But we are kind of coming up to those final pit stops here in the next 15 minutes or so. And when we look at those prototypes, circle 50 minutes to go. The majority of the field, their first stint, 48 minutes on fuel. However, there is the number 69 and the number 89 out there. If they can make it to even 52 minutes to go, that's going to be the roll of the dice. Can you stretch it in that final stint to not have to come back into pit lane? I think we got two outliers in that prototype field.
And they've got, what, 7 laps?
Yeah.
Or so. 7 times. It's not quite 2 minutes here, but it's close to that. It's about 14 minutes. They're on the wrong side of the number for the time being, but Joey has got his eye dialed on what could be a blinder of a strategy call. All-out sprint from Porsche Coanda versus strategical fuel saving from Drago Racing. To a lesser degree, BS Plus competition 8 seconds down the road from them. This is Martin Kadlecic, who, as I mentioned, what a wonderful race he had last week in the FIA Formula 4 Esports Global Championship. A photo finish between him, Aaron Vasquez, and Elvis Rankin. Aaron Vasquez is team manager for the Culture team that we have in GTP. Elvis Rankin, of course, races in Porsche Coanda. And that's the thing, Reese, that often makes me jealous. There's so many of these top-level sim racers who are good no matter what car you put them in, no matter what sim you put them in. You could blindfold them, and they'd probably still find a way to be quicker than me.
Yeah, I think that's what really sets apart the best sim racers from those of us who are merely very good. You know, it's adaptability that is key, and sports car racing is all about adaptability. As a GTP driver, you have to adapt between you know, going for fast laps, taking advantage of the downforce your car provides, and backing off in GT traffic. If you're a GTD, then you know, you have to be prepared to maybe run a bit wide on the entry into the corner, like that Lamborghini there as Alexander Spetz dives up the inside. You know, the drivers that are able to keep their pace and hold on to it despite a change in machinery or a change in track, that's what really sets them apart. And I think all of the names that we talk about, like Vasquez, etc., you go back a few years, even to ancient times, the likes of Gregor Hutu and company, they were able to be fast no matter what car they were in.
I'll go back into the days when the World Championship list consisted of 3 drivers on the road course: Martin Kronke, Gregor Hutu, and Hugo Luis. That was it. Those are the 3 dominant names. And since then, how far things have come. I have sent out a message. I'm curious as we watch Alexander Spetz blend traffic aggression with fuel saving as well. I'm quite curious here if, Joey, the only reason why we're seeing this from 2 cars, and in particular 2 BMWs, is that this race is warm enough that there is less grip on the track to the point where they're spending less time full throttle, less time putting fuel through the engine, and therefore there is some ability to save fuel. Whereas if it had been colder, for example, like it was in Sebring when I was there last year, it would have been harder to save some fuel.
You're right, cold weather makes engines happy, they make them go fast, but they also make them burn a lot of fuel. So yeah, the warmer temperatures could be playing into this. I also want to put the shoe on the other foot. Yeah, Spetz and Hoffman are out front. However, it's only by about 11 seconds. Remember, they're going to have to take a significant more amount of fuel than the rest of the field. So it's not like they're just going to jump out 10 seconds back in front after their pit stop. It's going to be kind of that pace difference, as it looks like the number 78 car, Manidi Racing, is going to be getting a drive-through penalty contact with car number 11.
Pretty sure we saw that contact as well, but that is yet another thing that race control has intervened on. 30 seconds to go, and as the cloud cover is somewhat built up slightly, track temperature is actually down now to 43 degrees Celsius, so it is dropping fast. That works out to around 109 Fahrenheit. It is still Coanda that find themselves in control of GTD. Alejandro Sanchez has linked up right onto the gearbox of his teammate Tristan Iglesias. And as we tick over into that final hour of this AMD 240, just that reminder, the next race of the IMSA Esports Global Championship includes another round of the electric IMSA Esports P3 Challenge. Join us Sunday, November 23rd, 1:20 p.m. Eastern will be the green flag on the streets of Long Beach, and then we go racing. First with the GTPs, 2 p.m. Eastern for 75 minutes, a sprint around the Action City. And once we're done, we will fly across the U.S. to America's Motorsports Resort Drive, across the North Carolina border into Virginia. 3:30 p.m. estimated green flag start as the GTDs get full focus on them for the first time since 2022, and they were the fastest class, and the slower class in the championship were the touring cars. A interesting combination, to say the very least. Reese, Kawanda in a great spot here, 10 seconds to the good, strategy looking great, pace looking great. Question becomes, how do you let them fight amongst themselves in these final 59 minutes of action?
Yes, I mean, I've obviously known of Coanda Sim Sports for a long time and very familiar with their results and their success, but their team culture, not necessarily. Their stance on team orders, I have to wonder. I mean, after this race, we're only going to be at the middle stage of the championship, so I don't think they're really thinking about prioritizing one car over the other necessarily at this point. I'm sure that they're more than happy to just fly in formation for now. I think we'll get a clearer answer to that question when we're a little bit closer to the green flag. The checkered flag, sorry. Green flag was in the past.
We all picked up what you were putting down as... closing up. Elvis Rankin, by the way, just sharing a bit more information with me, and Joey, I think you'll find this intriguing. The fuel safe strategy has one specific downside, which is that the tire has a cliff around lap 18 to 20. So they've been driving for about 5 laps or so with a tire that's lost a lot of the pace, and then because they've topped the car off with fuel and they're saving, they've got to go a couple more laps on those tires.
I hear what you're saying, but that is their experience with it. It's not necessarily everybody's experience with it, right? They might have the tire fall off at 18 to 20. However, remember, this is an open setup. Everybody's brought, quote unquote, a different car out here. They've all got their own strategies. I will say, only having about a 10-second gap and having the fuel time difference on pit road, I think is probably going to be the biggest mountain to overcome. That shorter stop, especially for that number 91 car, I think will leapfrog them back out front. However, remember, Drago Racing, they weren't even anywhere inside the top 5 when we were just talking about no strategy at all. So when we look at the big picture, I do think it's a positive gain.
Absolutely. I am loving the fact that we have even the possibility of different strategies. It's often quite boring when everyone's on the same strategy, pitting the same lap. This is fun. This is interesting. This is different. Back on board with Felix Kornbach as he's right behind that Ford Mustang in the fight for 8th position in GTD. Ford Mustang, by the way, which has just debuted some Evo upgrades for 2026. Another thing to add to the wish list, please, Mr. iRacing. In fact, a whole suite of GT3 cars getting some updates tested at Daytona. There was the Porsche Evo. A lot of the talk about that has been drivability, getting that into a better window. The brand new Lamborghini Temerario got a shakedown on US soil for the very first time. And as Kornbach shakes to the inside, Ford Mustang has got a bit of a redesign around the front and a couple of other things, all just meant to make it a bit more competitive as Ford Racing continue to find more speed. So much action on the track. We break out the triple box. You've got the fight for second in the prototype class at the top of your screen as Sir Trollins is now right on the tail end of Dominic Hoffman. That fight for the 3rd step of the podium, that's bottom left. And then, as BS Turner and the Apex Racing team resume hostilities, there is a long history between these two teams, lots of contact between the two. Oh, through Big Bend, Luca Kita, the German, holds on, and Kornbach's going to have to try and set his sights back up to turn 7, Reese. Can he get to the inside? They are starting to cost each other time.
Yeah, well, he's definitely not going to get inside. Kita defending that very nicely, and he's the first to the apex. Straightens up the car nicely, but I get the feeling this BMW is going to try another move very shortly. I mean, at this point in the race, we are inside an hour to go. This is about the point where you're going to start really defending for track position. These guys still have another pit stop to go, and trying to maintain that track position is crucial to that. I think Heater's doing a good job. He's making that the widest Mustang in Florida at the moment.
Some tacos for Quernbach if he can make that move at some point, you would assume. Still that fight for second, not really closing up just yet. And as Alexander Spetz comes out of the final corner to end lap 57 of this race, officially 4 minutes and 28 seconds shy of 50 minutes to go. Joey, if they've only got 2 more laps of fuel, I think they're in trouble. They're hoping for 3.
I disagree. I think that 52 minutes, you can make it to the end. I mean, we've seen prototypes go 29 laps out here. You got to remember, we're just trying to get to the checkered flag. I think that you can do some heavy fuel saving in some certain areas. Remember, when you catch GT cars and you can't make it through a corner if they're stacked up in front of you, great opportunity to heavy fuel save out there. As it looks like we've got some driver changes going on in the GT class, one of the Lamborghinis on pit road.
So that's Raphael Renhofer, who has impressed in the Digital Nürburgring Landstracken Series, replaced by Luca Alper. And you are right, Joey, I've just done the math. If they're doing about 110 second lap times in GTPs, 29 lap stints, that's 53 minutes. So really the magic number is 53 here. If they can do 29 laps, they could be good from here. My preference, though, Reese, would be go 1 more lap beyond this, leave myself with a 28 lap stint potentially to the end of this race.
Why don't you just add some more fuel in the tank too, Arjuna?
Yeah, just I don't know, try and get some extra fuel in the roll cage or something. NASCAR's done that sometimes in the past. My perspective as a driver is always just hedging my bets and making sure that I have the best possible scenario in the final stint of the race. So yeah, I agree with both of you in some ways. I really don't want to be a fence sitter, but I don't think I have a choice here, because yeah, you can certainly try and extend the stint as best you can, but you're going to reach that limit sooner or later. Yes, indeed. So our leader is in.
So they can get here. However, the reason why I said I prefer to do the 1 extra lap, Joey, is you might have to do 1 extra lap beyond once you see the white flag.
I hear you, but that's relatively straightforward math in a prototype. I think in the GT class, it's a little bit more convoluted. And the other thing that Drago has going for him, yeah, they pitted with, call it 52 minutes and change to go, but you're going to sit here on pit road for another 35, 45 seconds. By the time you actually get back out onto the racetrack, it's only looking at about 51 minutes, call it 51 and change out there, which you know you can make it to the end on fuel. However, you have to remind the driver, same strat as the first 2 stints. If you start blowing through that fuel, plain and simple, you're not going to make it.
Some GTD pit stops as well. It's not that we're not ignoring them, it's just that we're still trying to figure out what's going on in the GTP class. Here comes Redline, though, defending champions, as high as 12th in this middle phase of the race, if we're being realistic. Their championship defense is slightly off the rails at this point. It looks like Kawanda have locked themselves on with a stranglehold in GTD, and it's going to be very difficult. The question might be, is it the 118? Is it the 181? Which of the purple and orange Corvettes will be the one to grab the win in about 51 minutes time? Felix Quernbach is on the 24th lap of his stint, by the way, so I would also expect within a lap or 2 these machines to make their way in as well. There will be a driver change for them too, and this is always an interesting place to be put into. Under pressure, in a fight, Reese, and straight away having to get into the action.
Yeah, that's a position that I've been in before, and it's certainly not something I'd wish on anyone. The pressure that you feel when you jump into the car knowing that you are going to be immediately sent into an on-track battle with another car, as there's the Coanda Corvettes on their way into pit lane. I would expect the vast majority of our GTD top 10 to move in behind them. 25 lap stint for those guys, and it looks like we're having the same for Reina Talva in the Mala BMW. He's been shadowing those Coanda cars quite nicely.
I think we'll see Virtus Pro potentially stay out. Scuderia Ferrari HP Esports is on the entry to pit lane. Little bit Got to be careful there. Don't want to run into the car in front of you and now hit your marks. It's a battle of the pit strategists. Who has selected the strategy that will see them leave with the shortest time stationary and head back out onto track? Race control, by the way. First penalty in just a little while has gone the way of Grid and Go's 107. That car finished decently at the first round of the championship, but again, another team on the back foot somewhat. Here's the blend, though. Teammates back out on track. It's Michael Gianni that leads. Xander Reed tucked in behind. So the round one winners slot into second, and it's the defending race winners, albeit in a new manufacturer and with some new looks, that lead the net race, as there's confirmation of the penalty, Joey. So Ellis Jr. will be in within a lap or two. Daniel Lafuente, who has lost a lot of ground, unfortunately, in the Scuderia Ferrari HP Esports team machine, he could go as many as 3 more laps from here.
Yeah, I think the GT cars are kind of wide open in terms of their pit window. Now, if you come in from here, you will be able to make it to the end. So it really is just those strategy calls. How has your race unfolded thus far? Can we stretch it a little bit more on that light fuel? Because remember, fuel equals weight, right? The more fuel you carry, the slower you're going to go on the racetrack. So if you can stretch it all the way to a completely empty tank, that's going to give you the most time on the lightest fuel load, aka the fastest car.
So let's give you a quick GTP update then, now that the teammates, or not teammates, the BMW cars, Drago and BS Competition, have pitted and we have cycled through. It should be one more pit stop for everybody but them. We ride on board in 5th position with Sean Campbell. He's 20 laps into his stint, probably another 4 or so away from diving to pit lane, which is what Virtus Pro and Fiercely Forward in the Mercedes and Lamborghini are doing right now. So Porsche Coanda lead, 9 seconds clear of BMW M Team red line. Another 9 seconds back to the second red line machine, although Gustavo Ariel on a different strategy to Diogo Pinto. 4th for Virtual Mindset Solpec, Robin Schwanker getting some redemption after his disconsolation at being involved in incidents at lap 1. And that's the top 4 in GTP. We are headed into the final moments of action in round 2 of the IMSA Esports Global Championship, the AMD 240. We'll be right back with a run to the finish.
Cause you woke up in the morning with initiative to move, so I make it harder. Don't hold back. Galvanize.
Trajectory and balance look good. Confirmed to go for orbit.
Every day, Michelin innovates to move the world forward on the road and far beyond. Michelin, motion for life.
Today's coverage of the AMD 240 is brought to you by AMD. The AMD Ryzen 9 9950X3D processors with second AMD Gen 3D V-Cache technology is now available for a massive gaming performance boost. And by Michelin, the official tire of IMSA. Michelin is the exclusive tire provider for all classes of the WeatherTech Championship, Michelin Pilot Challenge, and VP Racing Sports Car Challenge Series. And by VCO, discover the format that never sleeps. VCO Infinity. The world's best take on 24 races in 24 hours. 45-minute sprints with 5 classes and 5 tracks. Every driver change is a strategy in and of its own. Every moment matters. Apply now at vco-infinity.com. And by iRacing Arcade. Wishlist iRacing Arcade today. Coming December 2nd on Steam and consoles in early 2026. Arjuna Kanki Party in the iRacing broadcast booth alongside of Reese Gardner and Joey Atterbury. We are delighted to have your company here on the IMSA channels on the iRacing Esports Network with 45 minutes left to run. Don't forget now through December 2nd, iRacing's Black Friday sale is available. New memberships are 50% off and all renewals are 25% 10% off as well. Our eyes are locked on the fight for fourth. Just as we went to break, Reese, Robin Schwanker threw it off the track at turn 10, and now on the hunt behind Sean Campbell in the Cadillac for Grid and Go in the number 7.
Indeed, and it's looking to me like this car we're riding on board with a little bit closer to having to pit again. Just starting the 22nd lap of his stint there is Sean Campbell, and we've seen the GTP stints run for round about 25 laps or so, something around that. About 52 minutes is the maximum that some of the teams have tried here at the front of this field. It really is sprinters versus fuel savers at the front end of this GTP field, and in the GTD class this battle's continued on after the pit stops. The Apex Racing Team Mustang losing out in the pit cycle to the Turner BMW, but they're certainly keeping them honest.
It was about 8/10 difference in the box, and I think that was the difference. Oskari Rene grabbing the spot in front of Johan Hart, who jumps back into the car. For those that are just joining us, we mentioned earlier, Johan started that Apex Racing 199 Mustang, but his headphones died during the opening stint of the race, so had to do the driver change and then put himself back in. Well, with about 2 hours compete, let's take a look at some of the highlights of this AMD 240 and a wild second hour. Big battle between Casey Kerwin and the Channel 199 machine, with a whole handful of machines, including Solpec Precision, while Apex and BS Turner resume their hostilities, many years of fighting, and doing it once again here in the IMSA Esports Global Championship. It has been a glorious, sunshine-filled day here at the Sebring International Raceway. Some contentious moments down the Ullman Straight, contact between Maniti Racing and the Coucher Acura on the run down into the final corner. That battle ended up with a bit of contact then with the GTD car. The big green machine slips off the track, all fault of its own. Cold tires, a big factor. Tanguy Beyond straight lines the braking zone of turn 10 as he struggles to get the Michelins up to pressure and up to temperature. All as behind Quernbach and Keita continue to tussle. Apex, BS, Turner. In the GTP class, we've seen some good fightbacks through the field, including that Solpec Precision car on your screen. It's up 10 positions so far. Qualified in 16th, it's up to 6th, but it's Kawanda in control of GTP and in GTD. They run 1 and 2 with their pair of Corvettes. Michael Gianni just in front of Xander Reed. Charlie Collins in front of Diogo Pinto in the GTP class by a full 10 seconds. And Joey, I think we've kind of been wondering this question. If you are the Kawanda sporting manager, at what point do the gloves come off and do you tell the team, well, it's all bets are off?
That's a tough question to ask, because you got to remember we still have to go to VIR with these GT cars. We still have to go to Daytona, and it looks like we're going to get a little bit of a replay here. I believe this is Cody Dietz. So watch these two Kawanda cars. These are our two leaders. So Cody's going to simply try to tuck back in, and I think he just gets loose off of turn number 17, and thankfully it's not actually a bigger accident than just this single car. You see the Ferrari close it in, and then the bumps here kind of upset the platform. It gets way out wide, has a huge moment of oversteer and heavy into that driver's right concrete wall. I can't say that Cody was able to spin it back around without affecting anybody else.
Now, I didn't drive around Sebring at speed in my rental car, if Hertz, Avis, whoever it was is listening, but I distinctly remember just how blind the entry into Sunset is. You don't see where the corner is when you tip it in, when you turn the wheel to the right initially. And as you slowly first wind in the steering and then start to unwind, in the real world there's this blue dot. That's your point that you're trying to hit underneath that bridge. In the sim, I don't know if you can see the dot. What I do know is that you're looking for that same consistent line time after time after time through traffic at the Apex Racing Cadillac, now with Max Scudino behind the wheel. Just behind. Sorry, go ahead.
To expand on that point, because we were talking about turn number 17, I actually think there's two blind points. It's one, the turn in that you were just mentioning, and then the second blind point is actually the apex, right? Because you're pretty much pointing it at that driver's right wall. At least in the real world, you're pretty much hugging that right side wall. So to your point, it's not just one blind moment going in. It's actually two blind moments by the time you get to apex.
riding with Leo Gariboli, who was the either 2022 or 2023 Porsche Carrera Cup Esports Great Britain AM champion, now part of the Apex Racing team crew. Oh, deep under the brakes, closes under the rear wing of that Ford Mustang. This is the fight for 19th position. Every position at this point is worth 10 points, so it really does matter. And Joey, this is a great illustration of that blind entry. And just look at the speed and commitment from those prototypes as they flick it in.
And with these classed cars, I mean, you're just barely getting on the brakes right before this turn-in point, especially in the prototypes. I mean, you really send it in there. So, yeah, you've got, call it your first clipping point right here at the beginning of turn number 17, and then you really got to carry the speed through turn 17. You get to so many bumps right in the middle of the corner, and especially if you can go out there in the real world, you can definitely watch these cars pretty much get on one tire. It's so amazing to watch them lift that front right, and by the time they actually get on the throttle, it's almost like they're doing a one-wheel wheelie over some of those bumps.
That poor cameraman who was asked to stand on the outside of Sunset Bend and watch them all fly. That's the other glorious thing about the sim, where you can manipulate the cameras and put them wherever you want. I've seen a lot of complimentary comments to our iRacing broadcast team, who do a great job behind the scenes, and it's a big team, that is for sure. It happens with the whole crew. Reese, as we focus in on this Drago Aston Martin, this is the white of the Drago entries, the other one's red. For a team that started off the season so strongly, running up towards the front, it does kind of seem as though the Aston Martin struggling a little bit more here in round number 2. Now, whether that's BOP or whatever, reality is it's not really going to make a big difference. If you've got these two Corvettes who are at the front of the field, can afford to start fighting a little bit with each other and not even costing each other time. Onto the back straightaway they go, and I feel like Michael Johnny, who has been passed by Xander Reed, wants to get the lead back. Kawanda have released the shackles.
Yeah, they have. They are well into the final stint now, and it looks like it's going to be the start of the final stint for the GTP Coanda machine, making their final pit stop. They've led the race effectively for pretty much the entire goings-on here at Sebring. And it looks to me like they're going to try their best to keep that, but they need to keep an eye out for the BMWs that are fuel saving behind them. There's still a lot of question marks around that. Have a look at how hard Michael Janney is pushing there on the exit of turn 1. That's one of the corners that's really difficult in a GT car. You don't have the luxury of downforce that these prototypes have, as the Williams Esports, Williams Sim Racing Chill Blast entry makes its way into the pit lane as well. For the moment, Xander Reed looks like he has the advantage, and the fight has died down for the moment, but all it's going to take is a little bit of oxygen, and those embers are going to kick up again.
Still remember last year when we had that AO Racing by Kawanda entry. It was Rexy on track, racing in the virtual world, and when Tristan Iglesias, Michael Johnny were able to capture the victory here, it was a great moment for the team, of course. But then Joey, Michael actually got the chance. He lives in Southern California. He got the chance to be at Laguna Seca, meet the team, take some photos with that car, just be a real part of that camaraderie. Because when any team wins, there's always a big moment. When a team with a profile, with a brand like Rexy and AO win, it means a little bit more.
Just to be associated with that brand is definitely special. You just mentioned just getting the opportunity to drive with them, right? Let alone go out to Laguna Seca and actually experience a race weekend. I think that Michael Janney is definitely relishing that opportunity. I know that when we spoke with him last year, there was a lot of pressure, right? It's not often that you get to represent a brand like that. So the pressure that comes with it, you need to be able to go out there and perform. I think that Michael is always a constant professional, especially in the esports world. I hope that he had a fantastic time out at Laguna Seca. I know it's one of my favorite racetracks to go and visit. Always sunny in the afternoon, albeit a little bit cold and foggy on most mornings.
Yes, Marine Layer likes to make its way down for IndyCar in particular. Fortunately, we didn't get it for IMSA this year, as we focus back on the fight between Grid and Go and Apex down in 19th, not where you'd expect two strong teams to be. on the back foot to say the very least. Laguna's a wonderful track, albeit terrible cell service on pit lane is what I found out. Sebring, as much as it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, I commentated the IMSA Esports Sebring race from Sebring last year. Had just enough Wi-Fi to be able to watch the pictures and see everything happening. Down in through the final corner, 34 minutes left to go. All GTDs have made their final trip down to pit lane. Still waiting for a handful in GTP. My suspicion, Reese, Diogo Pinto, maybe this lap, working lap 23 of the stint, but within a couple of laps at the very least. And then we'll have to watch the merge with Porsche Coanda. EMM, connection issues, forced driver change for them, as there comes Diogo Pinto and BMW M Team Redline.
Yes, indeed. That's the first time I've seen that kind of message from race control. That's a shame for the EMM Porsche. But for BMW M Team Redline, into the pits they come, and you mentioned before the two Redline cars, not necessarily part of the same squad, full stop. They are running somewhat split strategies. Gustavo Ariel's going to continue on for another lap, and the same for Robin Schwanke in the Solpec Virtual Mindset car. And we'll keep our eyes peeled on these machines as well, fighting a little bit further back. The Drago and Williams Drivers Club machines, they're going to stay out another lap as well. We are rapidly approaching those last couple of stops.
And I did notice that Pinto 3 seconds shorter in the pit box itself, and so he will not emerge in the lead of the class. You can see how close it was with him and the Coanda GTD leaders exiting and merging off that pit lane. But it has slightly come down the net leading gap. And what I would also point out, Joey, is we were wondering where Drago and BS Plus competition were going to end up. Well, Collins has been in and out of pit lane, warmed his tires up, and is in the net lead of the race right now.
Yeah, that's exactly where the 91 is as we watch this fierce GT battle. I can say that it's side by side between Drago and BMW M Team Redline around the turn number 7 hairpin right now. So Drago Racing is going to claim what is 5th place overall right now, and I think that should net them, call it 2nd place once the pit stop cycles actually go through. However, they're going to have several cars on some brand new fresh tires that are ready to chomp at that back end.
I mean, once Diogo Pinto's warmed up his tires, he's only a second away right now from Mate Kauppinen. So yeah, I think second is going to be up for contention, and third could be as well if Gustavo Ariel has a strategy which keeps him within touching distance. Back up to turn 7. Once again, the wonderful Sebring Hotel off on the left-hand side. Sit in the pool, watch the race, and watch the traffic concertina up. Oh, PGZ, the BMW, not once but twice. Tip-taps with the Solpec Porsche. The lights flash in frustration, but Reese, Joey was mentioning this earlier. Turn 7's one of the corners where the GTDs can roll a little bit more corner speed. Sometimes it's on the sports cars, the slower cars, to be aware of that and to not run into the prototypes as they awkwardly lumber through the corner.
Yeah, when it comes to high-speed corners, the prototypes have it sorted, right? They're built for those sort of high-speed corners, but the layout of the chassis and the way the downforce bleeds off the slower you go, it really is a hard excuse me, a hard task to get one of those cars through a slow corner. GTD's much more accustomed to running at those speeds, so yeah, that is one thing that they need to keep an eye out for. Fortunately, they managed to get away with it for the moment, but it's not going to work out that way every time. And as a result of all of that, Thibaut Prévost at the wheel of the Drago 169 ahead has managed to eke that gap out just a little bit further. Pit stops in GTP, meanwhile, for Apex Racing Team and Williams Gaming Club, those a couple of those cars that we were seeing circulating in GTP a bit earlier, their final pit stops are now complete.
Almost into the final 30 minutes of the race. How things fly past in the IMSA Esports Global Championship. It's a great way to spend the off-season, although I know for a fact a lot of these sim racers would be very happy to race in the IMSA Esports Global Championship a lot more. Here we go, 30 minutes left to go, and guess who's in pit lane and hitting their marks? Gustavo Ariel. in that Team Redline 34 is going to take on some fuel, take on some Michelin tires as well, and we'll see where he slots out once the traffic has cycled through and those tires have warmed up as well. Diogo Pinto has emerged now 2 seconds off of Ate Kauppinen, so some fuel saving maybe for Drago. That could cost them a little bit, but just keep that in mind. Still waiting for Gustavo to be released off of the pit lane after what was a 26.4 second pit stop. So he's going to end up probably around 9 seconds, I would think, maybe a little less than that, Joey, behind his teammate. Drago Racing still do have a chance here, I would say, of holding on to a podium spot.
That's exactly what I was going to point out. I know that they do have to quote unquote stretch it on this final fuel stint, just like they stretched it on the first 2 fuel stints, but they're looking 2 seconds over that number 33 car right now, driven by Diogo Pinto. So they've got the track position. It really is in the driver's hands right now. Execute the strategy so that way you do, or I should say you can defend a little bit later in this race. We know that Pinto is going to be extremely fast here, call it in the closing 28 minutes. So can this Drago Racing machine make their car wide enough and fast enough to hang on to second?
So pit stops now officially complete. 7.5 seconds the lead. Porsche Kawanda. How differently things could have looked if not for a bit of contact down through the S's in the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. They were looking dominant. Josh Rogers had just jumped into the car. If Jordan Caruso was good, if Rogers was going to match him, it was going to be hard to beat them, and they could have been 2 for 2, and not just 2 for 2, 2 pole positions and 2 race wins. But racing isn't kind. Racing isn't predictable. And that is what makes it so special, so rewarding when you find that little taste of success. Ate Kauppinen gets to the inside of that car through Sunset, doesn't want to wait too much longer. Let's go back though, Reese. These two have been locked in battle for quite a while and don't look like they'll leave each other's sight anytime soon. Jarno Cox still behind the wheel of that Grid and Go 107, with Leo Gariboli unable to find his way through. 2 Ford Mustangs now being caught by a third one.
Yeah, that's the Door Esports Mustang of Jonas Rutten, who's up behind them. And I get the feeling the Lamborghini in the distance there might join the battle soon if they keep fighting like this. Beckham Jasir taking over the 167 of Williams Sim Racing play seat. So let's see how this one works out. These 2 cars have been following each other nose to tail since before the break, basically. And at the moment, these 2 Mustangs are on the same strategy, but the one behind them having completed 2 extra laps thus far. A little bit more time spent out of the pits, a little bit more life in those tires, I'd say, for Jonas Rutten, but his life is going to be complicated by the Culture machine getting up the inside of him. And okay, reappear entering stage right, the Acura has gone off.
Carlos Fenolosa has lost his bearings at Sebring. What I have heard, by the way, is there are plans to build a bridge on this back straightaway and a spectator stand on the exit of Le Mans so you can see some of the action on the Almond Straight. You would have had a great viewing angle from those grandstands of that little moment, and I'm looking forward to the replay, maybe on board, to see what happens from his perspective. Joey, I really find these GTP cars fascinating. It's not that they're slow prototypes, because they're not slow, but they're a little bit heavier. They're a little bit more lumbering than the LMP1 cars of years past. And so maybe that's something that contributes to moments like this through traffic when you just don't have that nimbleness to work your way through.
It might not have the nimbleness, and then also just kind of think about the development of the prototype class really in the last 20 years. You know, you used to have prototype specialists, and this is that move down into the very tricky, call it 15, 16 complex. Turn 16, this right-hander here, one of the most low-grip corners, and just a little bit too fast in. Oh, actually a little bit of contact from the Mustang turned him around at the very end there. But kind of to your point, we've seen a lot of the open wheel crowd, open wheel drivers enter their way into the prototype. So not only do we have these fast, aggressive Formula car drivers, but we also have cars that are maybe a little bit more heavy, maybe a little bit out of shape from what the drivers are typically used to. However, the performance window, oh my gosh, it is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and watching these drivers get so aggressive is a ton of fun.
Yeah, you are right there. That window is what's grown bigger and bigger, right? And, you know, that's my personal opinion, is that the reason why it's kind of evolved in that way is A, the rule set, that's part of it, but B, look at the drivers that have helped contribute. The Matt Campbells, Lauren Vantors, Kevin Estras. Now, those are all Porsche drivers, yes, but those are all some of the world's best GT drivers. You go back 10 years ago, now at the top of the prototype realm. So just interesting to see how modern prototypes, the GTP is a little less nimble than LMP2s. Top of your screen, fight for second is on. Ate Kauppinen, that rear view camera showing him the signs of the double iRacing world champion, Porsche Esports Super Cup champion in years past, but the reigning, the defending iRacing IndyCar Pro Series king, Diogo Pinto, the Portuguese driver's half look in the mirror just to show himself as they close up on the back of traffic. And surely this is a question of if, rather when, and not if. Knowing that Kauppinen has got to save his fuel, he's also going to have to be somewhat aggressive through the traffic, fiercely forwards. Porsche has to mount the curb to avoid being part of any of it, and through Big Bend, Reese, Kauppinen doing everything he can to keep some distance between him and the chasing Team Redline BMW.
Yes, going either side of the Corvette there on the way down to the hairpin, and let's see what the exit is like here for Diogo Pinto. Well, he's got them on the power nice and smoothly, but it's looking like it's going to be a bit harder work here to try and get past Ate Kauppinen, and this could be significant here coming up on the Mercedes. Oh, that's going to put a bit of space between these two GTPs now. This is where the track really narrows up, and you have to be assertive placing your car. All things considered, I think Diogo Pinto did a really good job of that. He barely lost any time with that little exchange. Just going back a little bit as well, we did see that incident for the Countach Acura, and there was contact with the Door Esports Mustang that triggered that. That Mustang with Jonas Rutten at the wheel just spent a very long time in the pits getting damage repair, and so they're just coming back out of the pits now. It looks like that contact may have ruined their race.
Getting closer into Sunset Bend. Door Esports not the first contact, by the way, with a GTP car that they've had. Remember, Tower down at turn 10. Bit of contact with the Meninti BMW M hybrid, if I remember. This traffic could help Pinto, although they're going to both be forced to go the long way around into turn 1. Passing that fight for 19th position, which we've watched plenty. Half look. Just thought about it in the chop to the inside. But Kauppinen able to carry the speed. Not a heavy enough braking zone really there to throw the surprise lunge. Benedict Vida is defending from Dara McCormack in what is his first ever major iRacing competition. It's not like he's a noob by any means, Joey, but every different sim has got their nuances, and Dara's picking up on them pretty quickly, running in 7th.
Well, and you know, you're always the one asking us the questions, Arjuna, so let's just put yourself in the Drago Racing shoes right here. Theoretically, let's say you're good on fuel, right? You can make it to the end. The driver doesn't have to fuel save at all. How hard are you defending knowing that you've got a 10-lap deficit on those tires trying to keep this Team Redline car behind?
So I'm looking at the gap to Gustavo Ariel now, down at 6 seconds, and I'm thinking that's starting to come down. The problem is Diogo Pinto's not left any room for questioning. Down at Tower Turn, up the inside, side your way through. And what does Kauppinen have in the fight back here? He still has got to do some lifting and coasting. Up to turn 15, Jean de Bion Bend. Watch them now open up the entry into the penultimate couple of corners onto the back straightaway, and I think this is where Pinto's going to pull that hybrid paddle, spool himself down into Sunset Bend. And Reese, that was a daring move, but knowing the fuel saving, knowing the traffic situation, Pinto plotting perfectly.
Certainly, fantastic move, and you know, we saw a couple of moves like that attempted earlier on in the race and they went awry. That's what happens when you get it right, and also put your trust in the driver that you're trying to pass as well. I think now for Ate Kauppinen, if that car does have to fuel save as much as we're expecting it to, this is actually a really good position for him to be in. All he needs to do is stay in touch with Diogo Pinto, stay in touch in the stream. Traffic here is going to help, and he'll be able to continue that run.
6 seconds has become 5.7 seconds. Gustavo Ariel, the Brazilian, is on the charge. His first appearance in the 2025 IMSA Esports Global Championship. He spent last weekend at Interlagos alongside his Team Redline teammate Max Verstappen, sinking in the sights and sounds of the Brazilian Grand Prix. And now full focus on pushing forward. Actually, as part of that trip, Max did a great interview where he said that young aspiring racing drivers shouldn't go and do karting and instead go and do sim racing, because all the things you learn in karting don't carry over into the car itself. Now, Joey, I don't think they teach you in sim or reality that driving off into the grass to pass traffic is a wise thing to do, but that's what Ate Kauppinen just did.
No, but if you go back and ask some oval racers, I'm pretty sure the pass in the grass is always a famous move out there. But this is the battle for 9th place here in the Prototypes Grid and Go Esports there in the number 8. And then, of course, you got that bright green and black machine, the Solpec Precision machine, giving chase. But, Arjuna, back to your point, I do think that a top-level sim setup is about the same cost as, call it, an entry-level kart out there. And what can you do with a sim? You can race it whenever you want. You can race it after dinner. You can race it when it's snowing out. You can race it when it's 110 degrees out in the summer. However, a go-kart, you have to be near a track. You have to be able to have the facilities to go out there and actually go and turn laps and do that practice. So, yes, I agree with Max is that I think first step, sim racing, a great first step. However, you do need to hit the real racetrack eventually.
Up the inside, here comes Aaron Full, forces his way past Peter Zuber. The Hungarian could do nothing there as they crept onto the Ulman straightaway. And I think that Cadillac may be starting to suffer a little bit. Peter's also on a little bit more worn tires as they jink past the Porsche of IMSA Esports. Aaron Full getting his way up into 9th position after that car started all the way down in 16th spot. 1.2 seconds the gap between Pinto and Kauppinen, so not a big gap there, but Gustavo Ariel is now within 4.5 seconds of the podium spot, so he is on the charge and he is on the hunt. Meanwhile, GTD lead, all sorts of stuff happening, Reese. Sander Reed is still in front of Michael Johnny. Is that going to be changed around at some point before the end of this race?
That is the question, and it's one that I don't think we're going to get a real answer to, but I think we can make a few predictions. I think potentially with about 10 minutes to go, they may get the gloves off again. Like the Coanda Corvettes as we have, that's not the first time we've seen that Maniti Racing Cadillac go all the way to the inside wall down the Ullman Straight. Going to try and make his way past the fiercely forward Acura. Has the Culture team Acura up ahead of them as well. This has suddenly ballooned into a fight. I'm sure we'll get back to the Coanda talk eventually, but this is where the race is at right now.
Can you imagine? There's only one car behind them right now. They are fighting to effectively not be last. Oh! Carlos Fenolosa off into the gravel. It allows Ballas Tarostroy the chance to slip through. And wow, Marcos Nunez follows through as well, plugs the hole. Great stuff. This is what the IMSA Esports Global Championship is all about. 53 cars saw the green and only 2 retirees. Mag Performance in the Ferrari. And another Ferrari, the Veloce Thrustmaster 102. Only 2 GTD victims as we close in on 16 minutes left to go. Fight for that third step of the podium in GTP, by the way, now down to 3.5 seconds. Reese, I really get the sense that even if Ate Kauppinen is doing enough to stay close to Pinto, Ariel, by virtue of that late pit stop, is able to charge in a way that Kauppinen just can't defend.
Yeah, certainly. Meanwhile, there's the battle for 6th in GTD. The fiercely forward Lamborghini forcing the Mercedes off, and my goodness, that's turned into a bit of drama there. A little bit of a miscommunication coming into Tower Turn, and I'm sure we're going to have a little bit more to talk about regarding that. But for the moment, potentially looking towards the stewards for that one. The Virtus Pro Mercedes flashing the lights. You couldn't see it from that angle. You can see it from that one. Darrow McCormack certainly making it known how he felt about that one.
And As he jinks back up the inside. Oh, I mean, maybe that is also the Lamborghini recognizing that let's give the position back and let's reset and go again. This is what you want to see at the end of the day. And the Hungarian Benedikt Vida, is he going to try again up to turn one, tucked up behind the Irishman. Traffic's going to play its part. And Joey, nice respectful stuff. Yes, it was elbows out, but let's get it resolved without needing the stewards.
You hit the nail on the head. It was absolutely the Lamborghini of Vida just realizing, you know what, that was a mistake. And if I don't give it up, well, guess what? Race stewards are going to be pretty much cracking down the hammer immediately. So I think it was the right call from the Lamborghini to go ahead, let the Mercedes back by, and then continue the fight. And this is a fight for 11th right now. This is the Scuderia Ferrari HP Esports team. Ole Steinbraten currently holding off the Visceral Esports team of Isaac Price. That's that number 12 car, giving chase in this, call it rear view camera, right? It's not the rear view mirror, it's the rear view camera.
Probably not too far off the placement of the actual camera, to be fair. Ole Steinbraten sharing the car with Daniel Lafuente, who joined the Scuderia Ferrari HP Esports team officially for this IMSA Esports Global Championship. Don't see the Ferrari prototype, as I did see some questions about. If the Ferrari 499P ever races in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, we will be delighted to welcome it to the IMSA Esports Global Championship. Until then, no new GTP additions anytime soon. Long way around, and trying the cutback is that blue and purple machine. Robin Glerum switching in for Jari Lehtinen today as a substitute driver. It's a decent exit off the corner behind Tanguy Billon, who struggled on the cold tire warm-up, but doing just enough, running the middle of the track, frustrating Glerum, going the long way around and unable to make the pass down at turn number 10. Time is winding down, though, and what happens when you hit short time? Desperation, Reese, is starting to emerge.
Yeah, but I think in the GTPs especially, you can't afford to be desperate, because those cars will turn on you in an instant of a second. You know, they're such high-strung machines. They have plenty of grip available, especially at high speed, but the moment you overwhelm that grip from the tires, away it goes, and it's very difficult to recover. Have a look at this, making their way through traffic. Billon is leading the charge here past that continuing battle for 19th in GTD between Apex and Grid and Go, and the move is almost opening to the inside there for Robin Glerum. That's Billon getting out onto the marbles and going wide through Sunset Bend. Just manages to keep it out of the wall, and they're going to maintain the side-by-side down to turn one. It's on.
The corner with a million lines and all, hip and shoulder, argy-bargy, running to turn one. Glerum with the confidence to send it around the outside. Yes, there was some contact, but he had the grip in that Porsche 963 to work his way the long way around, and now hopefully will start to drive away and not get locked in a battle. Joey headed back up to turn 7.
How many times have we seen it already today where these drivers are duking it out on the straightaway, trading elbow shoves to the ribs, essentially, as you go down the straightaways, but then once they get into the corner, they leave respectful room. And by respectful room, I maybe mean a car with plus 1 millimeter, right? Maybe even 0 millimeters if they're rubbing through the corner, but they're not shoving each other off of the racetrack. They're not running each other off of the corner exits. They're not going into the corner and saying, you know what, this is my corner. There's no space for another car out there. We have seen some tremendous racing here today. And I remember you brought it up. I think we've only got 1 or 2 cars physically not running. That's a testament to it.
Yeah, and I guess I can start to slowly reveal more and more with 2 more rounds to come. We'll have another wildcard, Michelin wildcard in our GTD class at VIR. And as of now, the plan is for a VIR, or rather, a wildcard entry in both the GTP and the GTD classes at Daytona. That will mean 54 cars circulating at the World Center of Racing. Now, the good news is, at least, Reese, if it's going to be the biggest entry of the season, it's a good thing we do it at the biggest track of the season as well.
Yeah, Daytona International Speedway with plenty of room in the pit lane for that requisite amount of cars. Interesting flashing of the lights there from the Co-Anda Esports leader. I think that was just to communicate to Julian Reimer in the Porsche there. Hello, we're coming. Please get out of the way. Thank you, sir. I'm looking forward to Daytona. You know, it's the highlight track on the IMSA calendar in both the real world and the sim world, and for very good reason. It's just got that certain atmosphere to it in a calendar, both real and sim, that is filled with these atmospheric, historic venues.
That was my favorite part about being part of the IMSA calendar this year. Down on pit lane, Laguna Seca, Watkins Glen, CTMP, Road America, Petit Le Mans, Indy, VIR, bucket list tracks. And that's something that you talk to drivers, they come over from Europe and they talk about the paddock. IMSA's a lot more welcoming, a lot more friendly in a lot of ways than racing in Europe can be, where it's a lot more cutthroat and no quarter given. Here, teams will share chassis on occasion when a car gets wrecked. And they also talk about, though, the tracks themselves, the lack of runoff, the old school nature of so many of these places. And it's a real treat that nowadays the IMSA schedule gets announced in March, so you already can start booking your flights, your hotels, and all of that early in the year if you have any intention of heading out to an IMSA event across of the US, or of course the one race north of the border. Williams Sim Racing Chill Blast, Matt Farrow, double winner in this race, 23 and 24. However, going to be 8th on the road. And Joey, our defending champions, a top 10 in the opening round, an 8th place here. They are struggling a little bit, and you've got Redline very consistently putting points on the board.
You have to worry maybe just a touch here in these first couple opening rounds. However, we're approaching the halfway point for the prototype drivers. That doesn't mean that you can't course correct and have a amazing back half of the season, while others might kind of struggle. They might flounder out there. Remember, we can't predict what happens over at Long Beach. We can't predict what's going to happen at Daytona. So yeah, they might not be happy with their performance and where they're sitting in terms of the championship right now. However, it ain't over yet.
Here we go as the fight for third heats up. Tires slowly falling away from Ate Kauppinen. Last lap was about 9/10 slower than your race leader. Didn't lose that much time to Gustavo Ariel, who got checked up in some traffic, but we have short time remaining at this point. Your leader is already heading out in through turn 4, which I believe means we probably have got 4 laps left to go. The gap down less than a second. Ate Kauppinen stuck behind a little bit of traffic as they head into the braking zone of turn 3, Reese.
Yeah, very inconvenient time for that to happen, and it's some of the at some of the slowest corners on the circuit here. Ariel timing it perfectly here. He's going to blast past the wildcard Mercedes on the way out, and it looks like Kauppinen is going to do the same for the Impulse Racing Lamborghini. Now they have a bit more clear air ahead of them. Just coming out of the hairpin ahead is another lot of GTD traffic, so they're going to have to keep their eyes peeled for that. The GTPs accelerate so hard and so much faster than the GTDs that they'll be on them before you know it, on a track that is defined as much by its straight line blasts as it is by its bumps.
The thought of repaving this track should never even be entertained.
Don't even mention it.
Yeah, not just for the lack of feasibility, but because it's an insult to the memory of Sebring.
You don't want a 25-degree banked oval corner for turn 17?
Now, you know, that could be interesting.
Closing speeds into turn 1 wouldn't be ideal.
I'm about to be crucified by the Sebring fan club for even suggesting that. No, again, we come from Road Atlanta, and the contrast couldn't be more stark. Elevation at Road Atlanta is the defining characteristic of the track, whereas here, it's the lack of elevation and the bumps. It's such a unique dichotomy that we've opened up the season with. Long Beach, Daytona still to come. Dialing in those setups are what the teams will be working on through the next week or so, both for Long Beach, but also heading off to Daytona. And the Rolex 24 The iRacing Daytona 24 is not far away as well. One more lap held on for the time being here. But Diogo Pinto, 5 seconds clear of all of this, slowly eking his way past some more traffic. There's so much speed in the Team Redline BMW hybrids right now. Bottom of the screen, Xander Reed and Michael Jarni still yet to really settle things between the two of them. I'm not quite sure if they are going to, Joey. They have been very, very coordinated since swapping around about 40 minutes ago.
You're right. The bottom of the screen, I think, is going to stay relatively the same. However, the top half of the screen, this is where the fight is. And let me tell you, this Team Redline car is poking the nose around the outside. They might actually have the grip to pull this thing off. I was going to say 12-lap different tires between Team Redline and Drago Racing. Drago's got the inside here, so I expect them to accelerate off a tower corner here. But I think it's just a matter of time, and I think it comes down to that tire life. The launch off of the corner, the launch going into the brake zone, I should say the grip going into the brake zone, it's all favoring this Team 34 car.
Now, the one thing that we know for sure is aggression has got to be tempered, because race control will be watching like a hawk. Any little bit of contact, and suddenly they will be involved. And as we talked about in our Michelin keys to the race, don't fly too close to the sunset. 4 minutes left to go. Your leader headed back out through turns 1 and 2. 3 laps left to run. Gustavo Ariel's going to get a good exit out of the final corner here. Does he have enough battery in reserve to kick up some speed into the left-hand kink? Half shows the nose, but realizes better of it. And Kalpinen rolls himself through the corner, and Reese, he's doing just enough, but you can see just how much earlier he has to lift. He's going to be really under pressure heading into turn 7 if Ariel stays this close.
Yeah, I think it's going to be done here unless Kalpinen pulls some surprise in the braking zone for the hairpin, and this braking zone changes lap after lap. It's so bumpy through here. You get on the stop pedal and you don't know if you're going to make the apex, but both of them ultimately do. And see that little hint of oversteer from Gustavo Ariel. He is pushing as hard as he can here to get this move done. He knows that there's not much time left to do it, but it's defensive again for Kalpinen into turn 10. And now Ariel's going to have to find another way through.
Here he comes, he's got the switch back, and surely not 2 wheels in the grass. And
there we
go. Using his experience, raced at Sebring a year ago in the Prodigy Racing League, Gustavo Ariel has brought Team Redline onto the podium spots, Joey.
I'm really surprised he was able to put down the traction given how narrow he was on that corner exit. I thought for sure that Kalpinen was going to be able to put the throttle down and accelerate away, but 12-lap difference on those tires. Team Redline 34 now up into the podium positions.
2 laps to go as Sir Collins crosses the line. Here at the Sebring International Raceway, there's still plenty of fights up and down through the field. I mean, the top 16 in GTP are only covered by 90 seconds, and this is GTP's overlapping with the GTD leader. Xander Reed has got a prototype between him and Michael Jarni. Gives him a little bit more breathing room. Look at the gap open up as the Apex Cadillac tries to back up the corner and get off with the power down as soon as possible. So now the lead has been settled, or rather the podium settled, I think, in GTP. These teammates, excuse me, will have 2 laps to go at the line as well, Reese, because Charlie Collins is just coming out of turn 7 now.
Indeed, so the race is going to be over very soon for the GTD class. And how about the race that these two Coanda Corvettes have had? They've shadowed each other all race long, swapped a couple of times, and through it all, they have had, they've extended it out to a lead of 6.5 seconds, or near enough, over the Marla Racing Team BMW behind. But honestly, props to the Marla Racing Team, guys. They've managed to keep that gap as close as it is, considering the sheer pace of these Corvettes up the front. But we come to that question every single time, Arjuna. Are the gloves going to come off for these guys?
I mean, I'm kind of hoping so, mainly because then Michael Jarni and Tristan Iglesias could go back-to-back, and I think that would be a nice moment for them. Simufy and Drago. Bit of contact between Thibaut Prevost and Lucas Perez as they enter onto the Almond Straight. But for the penultimate time, down through Sunset, And with time to spare, no urgency to pass the traffic. White flag will wave. It's 3.6 miles left for Porsche Coanda to finally stand on top of the IMSA Esports Global Championship. And going back to the GTD battle just momentarily, Joey, if it is the 181 that holds on, well, pole position at Road Atlanta, the race win, second in qualifying today, and the race win, they will have dropped 30 points out of the maximum, well, it's not even 30 points rather, it's 3 points that they would have dropped over the maximum possible halfway through the season.
Call it the world's best hole shot out of the first 2 races here for Coanda. Definitely the 181 looking to claim another victory here at Sebring, and it was that pass on his teammate. Call it about 2/3 of the way through this thing, and then it's been Michael Janney just trying to keep up with the 181. It is all in the hands of Xander Reed right now. I do feel like maybe a little bit more performance over his teammate that's giving chase right now. However, we're going to see if those gloves do in fact come off.
They will get one more lap after this as they weave down the Almond Straight. Penultimate time. The Apex Cadillac, Matsuts Godino, is right behind the Hungarian Peter Zuber. A Le Mans native trying to make his way up into the top 10 as the final lap of their race gets underway. GTD leaders are crossing the line as well now and will start their final trip around Sebring. Will Michael Janney find his way through in what has been a blockbuster day for Coanda? Pole position in GTP, locked out the front row in GTD, and they have dominated. Sebring is now wearing the colors of the purple and orange. Up front, Charlie Collins, Elvis Rankin, round 2 winners in the IMSA Esports Global Championship, conquering the AMD 240. It's a 12-second gap back to BMW M Team Redline, a truly dominant drive after being taken out, no fault of their own, in the opening round of the championship. Slightly further back through the traffic, still some battles rage on. Here comes Godino, slices up the inside. Morad's got to open up the steering, and Peter Zuber watches this opportunity and holds on, Reese.
Oh, this is going to get really intense between these 2 cars as they come down to Jean-de-Bienne and Le Mans. This is where the curbs are especially brutal. You've got to be so careful coming off that curb. It really unsettles the car. Looks like for the moment it's going to stay as it is between these guys, but have a look at the Porsche approaching behind. Things are starting to really close up here. The grid and go car will lead into the final corner, and here's our GTD leaders. Once again, things starting to intensify. Who's going to come away with it here?
Not a great run onto the back stretch from Xander Reed. Michael Janney is trying to side draft. Who will commit into Sunset Bend? Teammates will never make contact with one another. They are going to give each other just enough room. Inside line for Xander Reed. Long way around for Michael Janney, who will be left to try and drag his way to the checkered flag. But Xander Reed, Alejandro Sanchez, back-to-back winners in the IMSA Esports Global Championship.
Did you see the sigh of relief out of Xander Reed as he crossed the start-finish line? Huge breath right there. Talk about a dominant performance for all of Coanda here at Sebring.
And the emotion released off Alejandro Sanchez as well as they cross the line. Unbridled joy. Coanda on top for the 2nd year in a row, although Michael Janney, Tristan Iglesias lose out by 63 thousandths of a second. Oh, I don't even know how we're going to pick from all of what we've seen today. Somehow our crack production team has got to narrow it down to just one single AMD move of the race, and I don't envy their task. The final couple of cars will come to the line, and then we'll get to dive into our post-race results and into some post-race conversation as well, because Reese, there's plenty to pick apart now halfway through the championship.
Yeah, indeed. Just like that, 2 rounds in, 2 to go. And, I mean, you can't say anything other than a perfect day for the Coanda squad because, man, the 1-2 in GTD and the 91 finally getting their redemption for what happened at Road Atlanta, that's such a significant turnaround for them. Is it going to be enough in the grand scheme of things, though? It is a short championship. There's points on the line every single race. They can celebrate for now, but once the curtain falls on tonight, they're going to have to work hard for longer.
The celebrations will be short-lived as they prep for next week's race on the streets of Long Beach. Let's dive into our AMD post-race show with the AMD move of the race, and it's all focus on that blue and purple Williams Gaming Club Porsche 963, tucked up behind their sister car as they slingshot out of Jean-de-Beyond Bend alongside of the CrowdStrike Acura. And this was already, once we had seen some of these drivers struggle earlier on, and so there was some frustration building up, some intensity that started to rise, and a long sequence out of Sunset Bend, trying to cut back underneath, and what an opportunity spotted. Into the marbles goes the Acura for CrowdStrike and Joey. Robin Glaren wasn't done just yet. Bit of a wiggle on the run to the line.
No, and then the elbow shoves come out on the front straightaway here. You see the posturing just trying to get over to the racing line, but watch this car stick to the outside. The old Darlington maneuver, keeping the momentum up, carrying it into the brake zone of turn number 3, executing the pass perfectly.
And a well-earned recipient of our AMD move of the race. Last time, it was the entire last lap sequence that got the move of the race, but Robin Glaren, a very clinical move. Let's dive, though, into the AMD post-race report for the AMD 240. Our post-race results brought to you by AMD, as are these winning moments, celebrations. Xander Reed and Alejandro Sanchez getting used to this winning feeling as they burn it down on the start line at this historic Sebring International Raceway. Coanda on top in GTD, Coanda in top in their Porsche 963 of GTP as well. 12 seconds clear of BMW M Team Redline. Best of the rest with the second Team Redline BMW tucked in behind them. Different strategy for Drago and the BMW MBS Plus competition crews. Worked out decently for the pair of them as they grab 4th and 5th, although I think Ate Kalpinen slightly frustrated to drop backwards in the closing stages. Solpec Virtual Mindset 6th. Grid goes best Cadillac in 7th, with the Williams Sim Racing Chill Blast car in 8th, and just in front of Solpec and Grid Go. Apex's Cadillac 11th, Williams Gaming Club in 12th with CrowdStrike Channel 199, CrowdStrike second car, a pair of Minitis, and then fiercely forward Kalcha and Sheza. All 20 of our GTPs see the checkered flag within 1 lap of the leader. In GTD, 63 thousandths of a second. That's what split Xander Reed from Michael Johnny at the checkered flag, and Coanda locked out the front row in qualifying and dominated from there. Marla Racing Teams, quiet day for them in 3rd, but delighted with the points they pick up in front of the Additis Racing by World Sim Racing 197. EMM Esports, their Lamborghini 5th, in front of the other Lamborghini for Fiercely Forward, while Virtus Pro, a last lap battle with that Lamborghini, sees them drop to 7th. PS Turner 8th, Apex Racing 9th in their best Mustang, and Drago Racing, best of the Aston Martins, up in 10th position. 11th for the Visceral Lamborghini, 12th for Scuderia Ferrari HB Esports after a tussle in the opening hour for Daniel Lafuente. Drago Racing second car in 13th, Simufy behind them with Team PGZ, Team Redline, Sheza, second Team PGZ BMW, Grid Go, and Williams Sim Racing Playseat your top 20. Only a handful of retirements in this class, but everyone on this 3rd page finishes. Winward Esports, Apex Racing Team, the fiercely forward Porsche, the Sheza Porsche as well, while Impulse's Ferrari, Maradnas's Mercedes, and EMM's Porsche all 1 lap down. A bit more difficult the day for Door Esports, Altitude 3M, and the Aston Martin Aramco Esports teams. World Sim Racing, the final of our finishers, down in 31st, while DNFs for Veloce and for Mag Performance. That's our provisional race results. Race Control may have a few things to interject with, but let's grab a chat with our race winners. And for the first time, it's Porsche Coanda Esports on top. Charlie Collins and Elvis Rankin standing by with Reese Gardner.
Yes, welcome Charlie and Elvis on top in an absolutely dominant performance. Start with you, Elvis, because you were the first one in the car there. Honestly, the pace from that car was looking incredible, but some very interesting competition from those behind. We saw a couple of drivers make moves towards a potential fuel save strategy. Did you guys think that that was an option here, or were you just going to go flat out all the way to the end regardless?
Yeah, I think for us it was kind of like pre-planned coming in that we didn't think for us the fuel saving was the best. Our kind of plan was just to see like how the start was, see where we were at about, and then kind of go from there. Charlie did a really nice job of putting us on pole, putting us in a great spot, so I was just able to take the kind of grasp on the field and then just try and do the best I could through traffic and just try and extend the gap as much as we could to where we have room to play with.
Well, room to play with you certainly had. Move over to you, Charlie. Fantastic performance from you in that second stint of the race, ending up with that 12-second lead over BMW Team Redline at the end. It's some good redemption for the team after Road Atlanta, and a great points haul to put yourselves back on track.
Entertain Charlie.
We evidently do not have Charlie Collins
there we go.
hearing me at the moment. Sorry. Do I have you,
Sorry,
Charlie?
We're back. Sorry about that.
All good, all good. I just wanted to say it's some great redemption for the team after that torrid round at Road Atlanta where victory was snatched, defeat was snatched from the jaws of victory for you guys. So it must feel good to get the season somewhat back on track for this car.
Yeah, and you know, I know how much the guys put into that first round. The whole team, we were all putting effort into that first round, and also the whole team into the second round. And that's why it feels like not only just a win for me and Elvis, but a win for the whole of Porsche Quenda. So yeah, I'm super proud to get a win here today.
As you should be. Fantastic result from the both of you. Congratulations, and hopefully it continues at Long Beach.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
Let's shift gears over to another pair of Coanda drivers. It's, once again, Xander Reed, Alejandro Sanchez with Joey Atterbury.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and start with Alex Sanchez over here since you kicked it off inside the car. But looking at the championship effort, I mean, what a way to start the season. Are you guys happy?
Yeah, over the moon, really. Another 1-2 for the team. Really happy with the work we've done during all week with the car. We put a huge emphasis on practicing like longer race stints and managing the tire and the fuel as best as we could and making the most of what we have. Luckily, it's a great package we have currently, so really happy with that. I mean, the pace is obviously insane. Another 1-2 in quali as well. So yeah, really good. It's just fruit of our labor. So we are, I think, exactly where we deserve to be.
And moving over to Xander, you were able to hop in the car, call it just past halfway through this thing, and you actually made the pass for the lead, but it seemed like your teammates didn't really want to give up. That was quite a race to the checkered flag.
Yeah, it was a really great battle. Like it was insane. It was clean. It was hard racing. It's what everyone wants. Michael did a great job. He kept me on my toes all race. It's a fun battle.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys for coming out and racing with us, and congrats on what a way to start this season.
Yeah.
Great day for... Sorry. Great day for Coanda as we wrap up our post-race interviews with GTD and GTP winners. We look forward, though, to next time out. We'll start with the LMP3s once again on the streets of Long Beach before we shift gears to the GTPs as well. 75 minutes of racing for them. And then we fly across the virtual US to the Virginia International Raceway. But first, Reese, our GTP prototypes have got to survive. 20 cars. It sounds simple. It won't be.
No, certainly won't. Long Beach is a gauntlet, I think, is the best way to put it, especially in high downforce machines and machines as quick as the GTP cars are. I am expecting that there's going to be a lot of care taken from quite a few teams, but probably more than a few will end up in the wall. The GTDs, on the other hand, won't quite have those same dangers ahead of them as they go to VIR for their solo race.
Should be a lot of fun. Final thoughts, though, as we wrap up here in the AMD 240. Porsche Coanda putting things right after the disappointment of Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. BMW M Team Redline looking consistent in GTP, Joey. Still quite open as we head into those final 2 rounds of the championship.
Definitely a dominant day at Sebring for that entire Coanda esports team over there. But when I look into the future, I'm looking for the change of pace. We just had 2 events that were nearly 3 hours in total length. Well, guess what? It's going to be a little bit more of a sprint race. That means the drivers, they're going to have a different strategy out there. We might even see a little bit of a different mentality when it comes to the pushing and shoving.
And Reese, let's quickly just remind everyone, LMP3 Challenge kicks things off. 12 sim racers and then some invited IMSA drivers and influencers. We had a lot of fun and a lot of action before we even got into the main event.
Yeah, we did. It was a fantastic way to kick things off today, and the LMP3s are going to be racing at Long Beach, much like the GTPs will. So I think we're going to be seeing that same level of risk assessment and balance. How close are you going to get to those walls? How much space are you going to give your competitors? It's going to be a fun ride.
Should be fun. So join us a week from today on the IMSA channels and on the iRacing Esports Network. But for our great team behind the scenes, it's time for us to say goodbye. Sebring always treats us well. And for the first time, it's not Williams Sim Racing on top in GTP. Porsche Coanda Esports, dominant days here in the Sunshine State, and they roll out to the second half of the 2025 IMSA Esports Global Championship with championship focus on their minds. For Joey Atterbury, for Reese Gardner, and the team at iRacing, Arjuna Kankipati signing off. We'll see you next week for our triple header of Super Sunday action.